Board on this computer. All right, we're going. It's the Lex and Pete show. I guess you could call it a little throwback episode. We can call it the Lex Pins and Pete show just for one night only.
What?
Well, we
Lex
have
and Pete
George
show
on for a
featuring.
reason.
Shut up.
Hold on. I'm doing my whole intro here. We got George on for a reason. We'll get to that shortly. As always, a quick word from our sponsors. Sundog Multimedia. Sundog is an online communication and social media company. They were once just a personal tool that has since evolved into something much bigger, allowing users to communicate, research, and discover things that impact their lives and daily decisions. Sundog will collaborate with you to help build a modern yet nimble social media strategy by utilizing innovative and traditional media principles. Sundog is also a proud supporter of the Stop Soldier Suicide Foundation. Brains, brawn, and true professionalism. That's easy peasy moving and service. Moving, muscle for hire, assembly, errands, you name it. Easy Peasy is a multi-purpose team. If you need something, just ask. Every other week we do the power rankings. This is power rankings 5.0, I believe. 5.0. I do got to pull up my notes real quick. So I was going to try and draw this out, a little bit of a tease. That's what we call it in the biz. But George has let me know that he has limited time here, so we're gonna have to do this segment off the top. Spoiler alert, I was saving it for the very end. If you want to put two and two together and figure out what that means. If not, stay tuned, figure out what I'm talking about. So I guess we'll do a quick league state of the union before we get into our opening arguments, all that stuff. As through week 8, the current standings are top 3 seeds, 2 pins, and this is in order. 2 pins, Lamar and the Shits, Gino and the Zits. Those are the divisional leaders. The wild card teams are the Occasional Vibers, Big Brain, and what is it called? Does he still call himself Carson Wentz? McMorrow's team. And then 7 through 12 goes Wallace, Go Tigers, Suns, Slow Stroke Kings, Put That Shit On, and Slippery Pete. As it stands, the lottery from 6 to 1 goes Wallace, Most Athletic Suns, Go Tigers, Slow Stroke Kings, Put That Shit On, Slippery Pete. That is how these standings stand right now. I have some notes on those things, but we'll get into that when we get deeper into the power rankings. Since George only has limited time, I guess we can get right into it before we do any type of power ranking. George, we're having you on just because, I figured you'd want to gloat maybe a little bit. I know you've made it clear you think Pete is a moron, a dummy, a rube, whatever you want to call him. He did come at you earlier this week, so you went into this week, and as everybody knows, you have the powerful QB duo of Pat Mahomes, Justin Herbert. There were only 2 teams on bye week last week. They both happened to be the Chiefs and the Chargers. Of course, that left you without any quarterback. Earlier in the week, Pete came at you in the group chat saying that it was poor management. You poorly managed your team. You didn't, plan for this in the schedule. You didn't get yourself a third quarterback. It left you quarterbackless. Some thought that it wouldn't matter. I'd call those people the smart ones that could identify that. And lo and behold, you went up against Mikey Bowen, who's a formidable foe, and you beat him outright. You didn't just keep it close. You didn't, keep it within striking distance where if you, spent the money on Sam Ehlinger and got, what do you have, 7, 8, 9 points, maybe that could have propelled you to the top. Instead, you said, fuck it. No quarterback, start position player in the super flex spot. I'm going to win outright. Before we get to Pete, George, I'd like to first ask, how are you? It's been a while since we've spoken on the air. And then also, how are you feeling coming off of such a big win and doing what many thought might be impossible, or I shouldn't even say many. Some, maybe just one person in our league thought would be impossible, where you were able to win without a quarterback.
And honestly, thanks for having me on. It's great to be on your show. I really like what you've done with this show. I think that you have a lot of very intelligent takes. Obviously, as somebody who's made the playoffs before, managed multiple successful dynasty leagues, obviously have a perspective that people value in relation to Dynasty, that people want to be able to hear, and have had multiple right takes, able to admit when you're wrong, which is something that is a big step, but also have a lot of takes that came out right. I'm doing well. Obviously, took this season to sort of focus on the semester. It's been going well so far. Continuing to build, but a challenge this semester. Only got one more left here, so we graduated in May. So it's been pretty good. And then as far as how do I feel about the win last week, I think the win last week was sweet because it allowed me to bury Pete. Pete's dead now. I think you'll probably still continue to have him on his show, on your show, which is good because you're a loyal kind of host, loyal guy, and that's important in today's society. But Pete's dead. Any take that he has from now on, or anything that he talks about somebody other's team in the league, I think everybody knows now it's kind of just him blowing air, blowing hot smoke. And I think that that's kind of the position that you put yourself in when you just continually call for somebody's head and it never comes. We've seen this with a lot of different talking heads, the Skip Baylesses of the world, the Max Kellermans of the world, the what's the black dude that's on FS1?
Emmanuel Acho.
No, wrong again. Why do you even try? The fat one. What's the fat black guy's name? No one knows.
Damian Woody.
No, I don't know. He was on Speak for Yourself, but he's also a clown. Whenever you start to have some of these takes and you're just consistently
Jason
wrong.
Whitlock, I believe.
Yes, Jason Whitlock. Whenever you just start to have some of these takes and you're just consistently wrong, you're consistently blowing a hot smoke, you eventually get to a point where it's like, all right, this isn't even fun anymore because you're just saying something to stoke the fire. You're totally and completely unqualified to be speaking on the thing that you're speaking on. And then you become something that's just unserious and people ignore. And I think that that's 100% the position that Pete is in at this point. I think that he's just sort of a caricature in the league. He likes to talk and chirp. But at the end of the day, I don't think that anybody can take him seriously after this weekend.
Pete, your rebuttal?
Yeah, I was wondering where George would go with this, but I guess off the top, I'll say congratulations to Team Two Pins. I mean, they literally beat Mikey Team. Kieran, you said it, formidable foe. He's got 7 points for 500 record. Definitely no slouch of a team. And Two Pins beat him without a quarterback. So I got to give it up to Two Pins. Championship level play. Absolutely a very impressive win this week. George, you keep saying that my take is wrong. That I'm wrong, that I'm blowing hot smoke. When really the take that I continued to say throughout the group chat this week was that you mismanaged your quarterback situation. And instead of rebuttaling or debating me why you manage your quarterback situation or telling me how you correctly manage your quarterback situation, all you did was come back with, Pete, you're dumb because your tanking team stinks. Like you refuse to answer the question of how you correctly manage your quarterback situation because you said I was beneath you and that you wouldn't want to debate with me. But you did say you'd debate with Kieran. So I view this as an educational opportunity to me, George. I mean, you puffed your chest. You talked about your free graduate program with a high GPA. Weird angle. But hey, more power to you on that. Congratulations. I did actually text you privately when you left the show and give you support for leaving. I know what it's like to work full time and go through an MBA program. But yeah, that was a weird angle. And then, you did say that you would debate with Kieran on how you correctly manage your quarterback situation. So you don't have to talk to me. You don't have to debate with me because I'm beneath you. I can't touch that GPA you got. But I'd love to hear you explain to Kieran how you correctly manage your quarterback situation.
So before we start with that, I'll just point out it's classic Pete looking for me to do the heavy lifting for him.
Well, I mean, hey, I tried to have him do the heavy lifting all week, but the guy won't talk to me. So what am I supposed to do? Maybe I'll listen and learn something.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're looking for a debate, I don't think you're going to find one because I think I made it clear in the group chat. I don't really think that they mismanaged their quarterback situation. I think that's kind of
hindsight 2020.
In a way. No, I don't really think so because I think that it's a very you're kind of missing the forest for the trees, right? You're missing the bigger picture here where, it's a dynasty league. And of course you have to try and win week to week. It's very important. I could see the argument where you could say a team like Two Pins, the position they're in such a tight division battle where, not only are they dealing with the Vibers, but they're also dealing with McMorrow, who's a surging team right now. And I believe McMorrow is actually tied with Two Pins in record right now at the top of the division, but Two Pins, of course, gets the tiebreaker with a huge lead in points for. And that's kind of my base for the defense of George. And I can let George, if he wants to have his own defense, he can do that too. But, it's my show, so I'll voice my opinion as well. But I mean, yes, you can say, okay, they left themselves without a quarterback 1 week. If you want to look at it just from that view, then sure, they mismanaged their quarterback position. But I think when you're looking at it from the scope of the season and then from the greater scope of a dynasty, I think you have to know, right? You can't be too rash with your moves, right? You can't just all of a sudden sell out and say, I need to do all this because I need a third quarterback, right? You can go out and it's good to have that depth, but all of a sudden, if the price isn't right, you don't want to, kind of handicap yourself moving forward. And all of a sudden you don't have a pick here that you can't use on something else. And, you're doing all this where
the price was 50 fab. You're not crippling anything.
For who?
Ellinger, Heineke.
See, but that's where you're starting to sound a lot. That's where I think you're starting to sound a lot like Sean Fitz when he was coming to me and trying to get Intaki in trouble, right? Because Intaki was starting Corey Davis over PJ Walker, right? It's like Sam Ellinger. I mean, I think we saw it last week. I mean, he put up 7.54 points. I have written down,
which is more than nothing.
It's more than nothing, but at the same time, it's like, is it really worth the effort of using the fab and doing all that? And sure, it's the end of the year. It's not the beginning of the year. So how much is there to save? But again, when I'm Two Pins, or if I'm Two Pins, I'm looking at the fact that I'm going into this week with no quarterbacks and I have such a huge lead over almost all the league when it comes to points for. So it's like, sure. Okay. They could have spent the fab to do it. I don't think they had enough to do that though. Right. Didn't they not have enough to spend that 50 fab?
Yeah, you're correct.
Their budget as well with their quarterback situation.
Yeah, and Pete, I don't want to hear anything from you about budgeting when it comes to spending fab on quarterbacks. So I know that can't be part of your critique of their management of the quarterback situation. But I think when you just look at it, right, it's like, I mean, when they drafted Mahomes and then 2 years ago when they traded for Herbert, I don't think that you can project bye weeks like this. So I don't think that this was something that they could have tried to avoid then. And I think that it's more of just shit luck. Okay, we carry two quarterbacks in the super flex league. They happen to be, one of the best living like quarterbacks of all time right now. And then another, rising star. I think Herbert was second QB2 last year. And, he's playing a little bit worse right now. He doesn't have the same weapons. He's dealing with a rib injury. So, his performance is taking a tick, a slight like step back and everything. But, they still have like one of the stronger QB stables in this league. And, sure, okay, maybe they could have been more proactive in the prior weeks and tried to get somebody and maybe scoop somebody up with fab. But it's also, we're talking about guys that are starting, people didn't see Matt Ryan getting benched midseason like this. People didn't see Carson Wentz. You can't predict that Carson Wentz injury, right? So sure, they could have been a little more proactive and tried to grab somebody when nobody was looking, try and swoop in and grab Heineke. But it's like, to get Ellinger, sure, I picked him up for 0 fab 2 weeks ago and then dropped him like the next week. I only did that because I had a roster spot to do it. And I saw that he got bumped up to second on the depth chart. So I figured, why not? I have the roster spot to do it. I don't think Ellinger was like some league winning move or anything. And, Heineke's got a little bit stronger of a hold there. He seems to have, they seem to love him in Washington, but I think like I said, you're kind of missing the forest for the trees and you're looking so focused on this 1 week where, sure, you could say, it was a little bit of luck and hindsight looking back and saying that they didn't mismanage it. But at the same time, when you have that stranglehold on the points for, and you're already in such a good spot and you seem to have a playoff spot locked up, I just say, who really cares? Because, you're acting like, and I can't speak to this if this was their strategy or not, but stacking bye weeks is a legitimate strategy and just saying, fuck it, let's just take the L this week. And we're going to have full strength for the rest of the season. And to me, that's the case. All right. So if they drop one game, sure, that might hurt them in the division race. But when it comes to points for, I think Two Pins is a team that doesn't really care about the division. Sure, they'll take the week 1 bye and, give themselves a better position at that top 3 money. But at the same time, I think that they're more concerned about just getting into the playoffs and they already have a spot essentially locked up. So it's like, who really cares? So I felt like your criticism, you were more just searching for something to maybe stir the pot with George. And, to kind of piggyback off of his critique of you, I do think you are kind of reaching that meme status when it comes to your takes where, you're unwilling to concede points. And that just makes an argument impossible with you, because you can't just say, well, you know what, that objective thing that you just said is true, and I'll give you that, but here's my spin on it. You just straight up deny it. You say, oh no, that's not it. That's not it. Oh, I have the receipts. Oh no, I don't have the, you just do stuff like that. So I feel like you're kind of becoming a little too memeable with your takes. And, the comparisons that he made to you are I'd say pretty spot on, where it gets to a point where all of a sudden you just see it and you just say, oh, okay, whatever, slippery peaches, at it again. So I think if you want to have some, validity to your takes, and then, maybe become a little more respectable in the Friends Who Gamble media world, I do think you got to maybe tighten up the takes a little bit, maybe not fire from the hip as much, maybe just workshop it a tiny bit. George, do you think I maybe covered it for you?
No, that was really well said. And I think that just to, one piece that we need to cover off on again, I made it multiple times in the chat, it doesn't seem to be picking up with Pete, is that the argument was never whether or not I had mismanaged my QB.
That was the entire argument the entire time. It was literally the only point I made.
Well, that was
right,
your argument.
Right.
Literally the only
And this
point
is
I made.
right, exactly. And so this is where I'm trying to get to again, is that like you pivot from the actual argument so that you can
That
argue.
was the actual argument.
No, it wasn't the actual argument. You pivot from the actual argument so that you can talk about the things that you want to talk about. But the entire time I had always said that I cannot engage with you, someone who has no idea, you've never managed a successful fantasy team, you have no idea what goes into managing a successful fantasy team, for you to then critique how somebody who has actually won a championship is managing their fantasy team. It's just out of bounds. You have no ground to stand on. And so therefore, I can't even have the conversation with you. That was the entire argument. And so there is no discussion, like Kieran pointed out, you spent $54 on Bailey Zappi, a backup quarterback, with your fab, and you're telling me how I should have spent
when nobody else bid.
how I should allocate my fab, right? You have Malik Willis starting at your other quarterback position, but you know what you're going to tell me? How you have so many draft picks, how you prepared for 2023, how you've done all this research. But the thing is that is an easy cop-out argument for someone who's shit at Dynasty. And the thing that I was just telling Mikey Bowen in the DMs, Mikey, shout out, hopefully you don't mind me exposing our conversation, but I was telling him that one thing that I hate about Dynasty owners like Pete is that the fucking I'm tanking is their backup. You can always be this genius Dynasty owner if you just always say you're fucking tanking. I'm tanking, which absolves you of all responsibility from actually having to know fuck what you're doing. You're not tanking. You drafted a shit team. You made shit trades. You made it worse. And now you had to abandon your dumbass plan for this team that you currently have. That is what happened. It's not like you came into this league and said, I'm going to plan for the 2023 draft. You drafted a shitty team, then you made your shitty team worse. And then once you realized that you were in a hole, then you were like, fuck it, I'll tank. And now you want everybody to crown you as this fantasy genius because you might hit on a couple of draft picks in 2023, or they might all fucking bust and your team will continue to be a piece of shit. And so as a result of all of those things being true, you cannot speak on my team that's actually been built to last in a dynasty league, to make the playoffs consistently, to win championships. Now, somebody who has actually had experience being in the playoffs, putting together a viable fantasy roster, not just deciding to tank when things get hard. Kieran could have done the same thing last season, just be like, oh, fuck it, I lost a couple games, fuck it, I'm tanking. I'm just perpetually tanking. So you have to respect my dynasty knowledge because I might hit on my picks in 2024. But no, he actually puts together rosters that can compete. And so therefore, he can have an opinion on whether or not my team mismanaged or didn't mismanage the quarterback position, because he actually knows what it's like to manage a quarterback position. But you have no ground to stand on to discuss that. So I guess my overall point has always been just stay in your lane and understand when you're talking about things that you just are not equipped to discuss because you don't have that lived experience. You have no idea what it means to manage a successful fantasy team. So maybe in 7 years, if you have Bryce Young and you have CJ Stroud and they both hit, which is unlikely if you look at the past quarterback draft, the Mac Jones, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields draft, we don't even know if there's one good QB in that draft, or maybe there's a couple average QBs. So it's pretty unlikely that you'll hit on both of your quarterbacks and have long-term studs. So if you're fucking rebuild doesn't work, I mean, then you're a super clown, but you'll always be able probably to say that you're preparing for the 2025 draft. And then nobody can argue with that because you get to just stand on potential for the rest of your fucking life. But once you decide to actually get into competition land, actually try to build a team, actually try to win games, then you can talk to me about what it means to win now and what it means to manage or mismanage your position. But until you're in that situation, you have absolutely zero authority to discuss people who actually put together winning teams and the strategy that they should be employing to win games, because you've never won a game. So how would you know?
Yeah, so I think I figured it out, George. That monologue there really just helped me figure it out. Here's where we disagree. And for those of you who didn't want to listen to that 10-minute monologue, you can just skip to this summary.
Or
George,
they
you
probably
are-
have
you
just
are
read the
saying-
How would they know to do that?
You are saying.
Wait, so you do you want them to go back to the beginning of George's speech?
No, I
and
want you to
then-
listen. I want you to listen to me to tell you why George is wrong. George, you are saying that my opinion about your mismanaged quarterback situation is not valid because of the success of my dynasty team.
Lack of.
That's what I'm getting. That's what I'm getting from you. Now,
lack of-
I don't think that the success of your dynasty team is the qualifier to identify not a starting quarterback in your starting roster. It literally takes only to open up the team and see you don't have a quarterback. You don't have a quarterback. So, sure, maybe I'm not qualified to identify you not having a starting quarterback because my dynasty team sucks, but I think I am. And I think I am. And now, just KP,
Hold on,
no,
wait,
no,
let
no,
me
no,
just-
no,
Is
hold
your
on,
brain
no, hold on.
working?
You gave
Is your
George 10
brain
minutes. I
working?
want to get my take off. You gave George his
All right,
minutes.
no, yeah,
KP,
I get your
You're
take.
coming at it with a rebuttal of this stacked bye week strategy. Now, George never came in the group chat said he had a stacked bye strategy. Instead, he said, I'm
I never said he
searching for a quarterback. He came into the group chat and said, I'm looking for a quarterback. He hit up multiple teams last week looking to trade for a quarterback. The stacked buy strategy is out the window when you text the league chat and say that you're searching for a quarterback. You clearly were not trying to stack your buys. So sure, maybe I'm not qualified to give takes on anything Dynasty Fantasy Football because my team sucks,
Yes.
but I don't think that's the qualifier to identify not having a starting quarterback in your roster. But maybe
Okay,
that's
so
what
let
it
me
is.
hold on. Let me so I'll cut in with a point. So one, you can run the tape back. I never claimed that to be Georgia's strategy. I said that it actually is a legitimate fantasy strategy,
that George
but I
didn't
actually-
use.
but I never claimed that he used it.
I'm not saying you did. I'm
You
saying
can-
he can't because he literally asked for a quarterback. in the
Literally
group chat.
just
No,
said
you
that.
just said that I was saying that George did that.
Well, I mean, you clearly defended his miss.
No.
you're clearly
I
defending
said
he managed the
that
quarterback
in
situation
fantasy
correctly.
football, much like the zero running back strategy, much like the whatever, taking a kicker later,
Yeah, he
not
didn't
drafting
use
a defense and only
He
playing the
didn't use
waiver wire. Like
He didn't use it.
these are
didn't use that
strategies, these are
strategy.
ways to play fantasy
he didn't use.
football. And as I said when I opened up with the arguments, was that I felt like you were just missing the bigger picture when it came to this thing where
There's no bigger picture. There's no starting quarterback in his.
okay, wait,
starting
hold on.
roster.
So
That is a
I gave George
mismanagement
his
of
time,
quarterback
right? I gave
situation.
George
I
his
don't know
time.
how you possibly.
I gave George
would
his
think that
time,
he
and then
correctly
when I
managed
started to talk, I stepped back and I gave you your time. So if you're going to cut in, I'm going to have to put you on mute.
The king of cutting in. Go ahead.
But like I said, when I started to cut in and you called me out, I stepped right back and I let you finish. Did I not?
Go ahead.
Did I not? Did I not?
Go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. No, you know what? Then we can just end it right here. We can just end it right here.
I'll give you your time.
All right. So as I was saying, it is a fantasy strategy. I'm not saying that Two Pins went into the season, planning to do that. I'm not saying that they identified it. I'm not saying that they did or did not mismanage it. My argument has been, I just didn't think it mattered regardless. Yes, if you want to say by the rule or by definition, they mismanaged it by not having a starting quarterback for the week, then sure. You went on the technicality. That is correct. Okay. They did not have a starting quarterback for this week. I think that my argument was always that it just did not matter because I did not feel like, I felt like, what I was building off of with the stacked bye week thing was that, who cares if you don't have for this week because you're going to have them for every other week. There's not going to be a week where they only have Mahomes and they have Herbert on a bye or vice versa. So they're going to have Herbert and Mahomes for every other week, barring injury, for every other week this season, before the bye week and after the bye week. Okay. So what I'm saying is that they stacked, not whether it was intentional or not. I don't think it was intentional. I never claimed that it was, but my argument was always that it does not matter. To make it clear from George's side, he never was arguing whether he did or did not mismanage it. He said that he was not going to engage with you in the group chat because he did not feel like arguing with you was worthy of his time. So maybe he does feel like he did mismanage it. Maybe he'll say that if he wants to, but he was never arguing that. What you're trying to go back to is that you're saying that he was arguing against you. He was never arguing with you at all. If you look back at all the group chat and everything that he said, he never said anything to yes or no to that claim. He said that he was not going to engage with you in the group chat. We got him on the show so we could have this conversation. But what you keep going back to now also is that he's saying that you're not qualified to tell him whether he's doing a good or bad job running his team. Now what you're trying to do is go back and say, well, I was just identifying that you don't have that. No, you were trying to say that they mismanaged it and that it was bad. It was, bad on them. Now you have egg all over your face because they went out and won. They actually have, they're still second in points for. They're actually the 1 overall seed now. So now you got egg all over your face. You're trying to argue a point and you're trying to talk about these things. It ended up not mattering at all. They won by what, 12 points? So it's like at the end of the day, what are we really arguing here too?
I don't know. I really don't. And that's the point that I've been trying to make this entire time. And yeah, you can say that you identifying something, that's just pointing out an objective fact, but then you went further to interpret what that identification meant and what that meant to my overall strategy. And that's the second piece that I don't think that you're qualified for. So you can certainly continue to point out things that are factual about people's roster. You certainly have the capability to do that, and you also have the capability to continue to give your opinion. I'm just telling you that it's totally useless, and the amount of opinions that you've given that have not been grounded in any facts and that have then been shown to be disproven or be just true or just be bad opinions has kind of put you in this position where, like I said, you're in this like Rob Parker, Skip Bayless type of, I'm just going to spout what's on my mind. I'm not going to actually rigorously analyze anything or actually have like any opinions that have any merit to them. And so I just think I was telling Keenan, I mean, I'm being dead serious. I really think it puts the show in a compromising position because I've seen so many shows go down that rabbit hole. And then it's just white noise at that point. Can't take it seriously, where you want something like the JJ Redick podcast or something where it's like legitimate people talking about legitimate things without having to have like the hottest take. Because you can say whatever you want to say, but I listened to the show the week before and you were also like, upset alert, upset. And I fucking crushed that team. So it's like, you can't come in here every fucking week and predict the death of my team. And then when my team continues to outperform, tell me how I should manage my team. Like, doesn't make any sense. If I had managed my team the way that, if I was managing my team that way, then it wouldn't have been that successful as it is. It's been successful. And so as long as it continues to be successful, then I don't need to listen to, not that I don't need to listen to, I'm not soliciting opinions from people who have not managed successful teams or not know what that is like.
Yeah, just to sum up my argument, it's pretty much that, is it really mismanagement when you set yourself up to succeed despite having a quarterback and now you have quarterbacks for the rest of the season and prior to that as well? And maybe you can, maybe I'll end it on that and pass that question to you, Pete, see what you think.
Yeah, I don't know. I think KB, you're just in hindsight territory, but George.
But I don't think I'm in hindsight territory because this has been my argument since the beginning, that I just don't think it matters given the position they were already in. If they were a team that was, a fringe playoff team fighting for a playoff spot, then I would view this 100% differently. But I feel that they built a team that is so strong that they can actually afford to, they have like that cushion, right? It's like having a rainy day fund or an emergency bank account or something where, oh shit, like I just crashed my car. I got to pay $1,500 out of pocket to get this repaired. Oh, you know what? Good thing I saved up and I'm able to grab that money, pay for it, get everything repaired. And it's like, no problem at all. That's kind of what I felt like Two Pins has done, where they've built such a cushion with the points for that even the potential drawbacks of not having a quarterback, if that led to them having a 70 or 80 point week, I just don't think it would have mattered because they're already solidified in the, in the playoff race. And, of course, now, looking back, turns out it really didn't matter at all.
Looking back.
Direct quote from Kieran 7 days before the game happened. Does paying the premium matter? Question mark. It's not like Fab carries over, and if they saved up to have enough, it's worth asking how much of a mismanagement this really is, given where Two Pins ranks in points for. Same argument making right now. Coordinating your buys is a fantasy strategy. That was 7 days ago.
So Pete, I'll ask you, has that opinion changed at all now after the game? Because you're saying my take's all hindsight. So that opinion sounds pretty consistent with what I was saying 7 days ago and what I just said.
That does sound pretty consistent. It just feels like you're
Okay, but it feels like you just heard what I said 7 days ago.
The severity,
But you just heard what I said 7 days ago.
Yeah, but you're
But how
talking
can-
about his
who
points
cares
for
how
it.
it
You're talking
feels?
about his ranking in the league. Like you're going on his team as a whole, but I'm literally just saying he didn't start a quarterback because he mismanaged the situation. Like it feels like you're
but that's why
blowing
I'm
up
saying
the
you're missing the bigger
severity
picture
of the
because you were so
mismanagement.
focused on
Sure.
last week.
Sure, maybe
You're so focused on last week that
severity of
despite
the
not having these quarterbers,
doesn't
they
matter
are
that
first place. They are first place. That's why
Yeah,
I'm saying.
great,
That's why I said when I
awesome.
opened it up,
I started
you were
off
missing
with
the
their great
bigger
team.
picture.
But I'm not talking about the bigger picture. I'm talking about them not having a
Exactly.
starting
You're
quarterback
talking
in their
about in
roster
1 week
for
in a
week 8.
dynasty league.
Yeah, and you know what I did about it? I sent one text message in the league chat that they mismanaged their quarterback situation.
You sent one text message,
then
but we have a
George
whole
started
thread of things you
defending
said.
it.
No,
George started defending it.
because you didn't care that much that we actually have a whole thread from that night of you just going on and on and on about this mismanaged quarterback situation. You're telling me on here that I'm speaking in complete hindsight, yet we just heard my text from 7 days ago saying exactly what I just said
Yeah, but
tonight.
everything you've said has been so lean towards George's side. So like I don't want to hear that you're middlemaning. Like it's just not.
When did I say it was middleman?
It's not true.
When did I say it was
watch
middleman?
It back. We'll watch it back. It's very lean sided towards George. We'll watch it back.
When did I say it was middleman? You just said
You
to
said
say that I'm
you literally
middleman.
said like I don't know maybe 2 run-ons ago that you didn't say he mismanaged or you didn't say he didn't mismanage. You didn't give a take. Neither is George, by the way. So George, like I guess
I've given my take.
My last question.
No.
is,
We can't even make it
your
clearer.
strategy?
We
What
can't
was
even
your
make it more
strategy
clear
with
what
your
it is.
quarterback situation going to week 8.
Kieran, has he not listened to anything that I've said?
He hasn't listened to anything either of us have said.
You had no
It's
strategy.
insane.
You mismanaged it.
No, it's legitimately insane because he's actually saying, because what he's talking about when I said that I can't say whether you did or didn't. I was saying in that we can actually run it back, Pete. I'd actually love it if we ran it back. What I was saying is that I can't actually speak to what George's intentions were. I was saying that my argument was that it's a viable strategy in fantasy football to stack your bye weeks. And then I went on to say off of that I cannot speak to whether or not that is what their plan was. That's not middlemaning. That is me saying that I'm not George. I am not Joe. I'm not here to speak for them. I'm here to give my opinion. I'm here to give my perspective on it. And that's what I was thinking. To say that I'm claiming that I'm middlemaning when I'm very clearly taking George's side and you think that's a profound take or something. And then to also claim that I'm completely using hindsight when we pulled up a quote from me 7 days ago saying exactly what I was saying. It just shows that you clearly are not listening to us. You came in here unprepared and you came in here just as stubborn as I was saying that you are, where you can't even concede points, that it just makes arguments not even worth having with you. And to a point, it does make what George says right. It almost compromises the integrity of our show because it's like we're going round and round and you can't even just say, okay, yeah, you know what? I see your side. Because like we said, we can concede that if you want to look at it and through a microscope and just look at this week, sure. You win the argument on the technicality that George did not have a quarterback. But what we are arguing is that it never mattered. I said it 7 days ago. I said it today. It doesn't matter. So to say that it's mismanaging when you are able to have a team that is so strong that despite having a week where you have 0 quarterbacks, you can come out of it being in first place. I have a hard time calling that mismanagement. I personally, from a real life fantasy, whatever you want to call it, perspective, have a hard time saying that somebody mismanages their team when they can go out there with no quarterbacks and come out of it in an even better position than they were going into the
literally hindsight. That's hindsight.
No, it's not, because that was my take for the week. So how is that literally hindsight?
George, I really want you to try to tell me.
George, you still have that quote pulled up. You still have what I said 7 days ago pulled up?
What the strategy was at quarterback. Tell me you correctly management and tell me the strategy behind it so I can learn. I don't think you have one.
I think the strategy was behind it is that they have a team that is so strong that it does not matter. That is the strategy.
The premium matter? Question mark, question mark. It's not like Fab carries over. And if they saved up and we didn't save up to have enough, it's worth asking how much of a mismanagement this really is, given where 2 pins is in points for. Coordinating your buys is a fantasy strategy.
George, did you put a bid on Ehlinger?
But that's literally hindsight. No, you know what? It is hindsight because I built the time machine. I saw how everything played out, and then I came back to let you guys know.
Well, Pete, I don't understand what I'm like having a hard time, like truly having a hard time. What about I can't discuss this with you because you aren't qualified to talk about management of a fantasy roster are you not understanding?
Because you're dodging the question, George. You're not
That's
answering
not
what your
dodging the
QBack
question.
No,
choosing
but
Directly
Pete,
strategy
into
what
was.
the
you're
question.
doing, what you're doing though, Pete, this is like, when somebody gets arrested because they murdered, they get arrested for one count of breaking and entering, 6 counts of, sexual assault and 2 counts of murder. And then they get off, they
And then
say,
plead
okay,
the
we
fifth
found
the
him guilty
entire
on the
time and
sexual
not
assault, found him
explain
guilty
their
on the
reasoning for
murder.
what they did.
But
Because that's what he's
found him
doing.
not guilty on the breaking and entering because the door was slightly ajar. That's what you're doing. You're clinging on to like this tiny little thing, this tiny little technicality to be like, well, George, you didn't have a quarterback starting at your position.
That was my take. That was the message I
That's
sent.
not a take. That's not a take.
That's what I said.
That's not a take. If I walk outside, in 90
You're out of
degrees
your
weather and I
tree
say,
right now.
Pete, if I walk outside and it's 90 degrees out and I say, boy, it's warm today. That's not a
Correct
take.
take. It's a
That is
correct
not a
take.
take.
It's a correct take.
That's not a take. That is a statement of fact.
Oh, so it was a fact that he mismanaged his quarterback situation.
No, it's a
No, the
fact that they didn't have
mismanagement is-
quarterbacks. You fucking fat fucking
Answer the
moron.
question, George. Answer
No,
the
I
no,
don't
question.
understand.
Answer the question.
It's actually no.
I've been asking the same question for 10 days. You
It's
still haven't
troubling.
answered.
No, it's troubling. No. Like generally, it's troubling. What you're not understanding is that
That my team
saying-
sucks, so you don't want to give me an
saying-
answer. That's your call.
You saying that I did not have a quarterback. That's a statement of fact. That
Right.
is true. I did not start a quarterback last week.
Indicating mismanagement.
No. You saying that I mismanaged my team is an interpretation of me not having a quarterback starting.
Correct.
That is a take.
How is
with-
that a correct interpretation? They
Because
won
he
the
didn't have-
game.
That's hindsight.
They
He
won-
didn't have a
No,
starting
how
quarterback.
How is it hindsight? Whether I didn't have a chance to win the game. Did you look at the projections? I had a
Yeah,
chance.
you were, it was like
the
a
entire
7-point. It was like a 7-point projection. So, and Ellinger and Heineke
Okay,
were actually
so-
both projected 8 points.
See, this is
So-
a
so what-
Sean
wait,
Fitz
the
argument.
whole
No,
time
this is
I
just
had a
like when
chance to
Sean
win.
Fitz was trying to be a little snitch, and he comes to me, and
crazy.
Tacky
I
starting
really
Corey
think
Davis
the rest
over
of the
PJ
league and
Walker.
listeners are
And I
going to
said,
call you both
but
crazy.
PJ Walker sucks. Who cares? Given where their team is, who cares if they start a quarter or if they start a receiver that could put up just as many points as PJ Walker? And then Corey Davis went out and outscored PJ Walker that week. And Sean Fitz left the league
Yeah, no,
over that argument.
that's
And he
correct.
was
That's
so
that's
wrong.
right,
And you
Gary.
came in here and you were on the same energy.
You're right about
You were
the bigger
just as
picture
wrong
here.
because you're trying to make this argument and you're trying to hang on to this fact that, yes, nobody is debating the fact. You cannot find a single person that is debating like I said, fact. It is not your take. It is a fact that they did not have a quarterback that could start for them. That is
That's
a
what I need
fact.
to hear. That's
Nobody
what I need
has
to hear.
denied that.
That's what
Nobody
I need
has
to hear.
denied that. But Alex,
Why are you victory lapping that?
go back and find any piece of text, word, anything where anybody has denied that Two Pins did not have a starting quarterback last
Which
week.
is a mismanagement of the situation.
How
which
is that a
George
mismanagement?
Refuses to answer the question of his strategy or what his thinking was
I
for a
can't do it.
quarterback
I
in week
can't.
8.
This is what I'm telling
We've
you.
gone
Shannon,
over
about
what
your
the
show.
thinking is. We've
This
gone
is
over
what
what the thing
I'm
is.
telling you.
Pete,
There's
let me, you know what?
he hasn't gone over
No,
the
hold
George
on.
has not said one thing about his thinking for his quarterback situation in week 8.
Hold on,
He hasn't said
hold
one
on.
thing about it.
Because
All he said is my team
it's
sucks.
been explained to you and you just refuse to
No,
get
it
it through your
hasn't.
fucking
It
dense
hasn't.
skull.
It
That
hasn't.
is that's what's happening. Because here, let me look at it this way, right? Like, okay, you were just asking, right? How is that not a mismanagement?
And no one's answered that question yet.
Yes, we have.
Okay.
Yes, we have. Yes, we have. Yes, we have.
All right, I guess we'll let the
No,
listeners decide
because one more time we'll go back. I
feel
don't need
good
you to
about
read
it.
it, George. We'll go back to what I said 7 days ago, where I said, "Is it worth paying the premium?" So they already didn't have the fab, so you can throw that out the window. And if you want to have the debate, which, like I said, I also think you're unqualified for, which is talking about fab management. We can have that debate. If they should have had more fab on the table to go out and get a guy like Ellinger who went for 80 fab. Heineke went for however much, and that was a couple weeks ago. If you want to have that argument or you want to talk about how they could have been more proactive, sure. They did not see it as worth paying the premium to go out and get a third quarterback
He
because
hasn't
they
said
are.
that,
No,
Gary.
hold on.
He
hold
hasn't
on.
said that. Only you've said that. He hasn't said that.
Because he agrees with me. You fucking idiot. That's why
He
he's
hasn't
having
said
me
it.
do
He
it
hasn't
because he
said
doesn't
it.
want to engage. with me.
No, I have not. I'm not talking to you about the fucking mismanagement.
You put a bid
or
on Ellinger. You
non-mismanagement.
put a bid
If
on.
Kiernan had
Because
asked
why
me-
wouldn't they
quarterback.
try? Why
if
wouldn't they
Kiernan had
try to get a third
asked
quarterback?
me, did
They-
you
of course they
mismanage or
started to
not?
try
Then I
once
would
they
have the
realized they fucked
conversation
up.
with Kiernan.
Hold on. Okay, let's pause this. Why wouldn't they at least try? Because what if they had a situation where, just like you with Bailey Zappi, nobody bid for him? What if for some reason the whole league looked at Ellinger and said, you know what, 6th round pick, it seems like, maybe he's just getting a start because I want to see what they have before they draft a quarterback or something. I don't think he's that good. What if they had a thing where, they might as well try and get something because, yeah, sure, they couldn't predict that they'd win, but they saw that it was close enough with the projections because based off of the talent that they have acquired on their team because they have such a stacked roster that they said, you know what, it's not worth going out and paying because, yeah, sure, they did their work and their due diligence and saw, what it would cost to acquire a quarterback that could start for them that week. They heard the prices. They decided it's not worth paying the price. You know why it's not worth paying the price? Because their team was already so high up in the standings, both for record, division, and for points for. If they were a team, and George, he can speak to this if he wants to, and I'd say, I'm just speaking from my perspective. If I were a team that wasn't in their position and I was, maybe, McMorrow or Wallace or Mikey or something where, every point matters just to get into the playoffs, then I'd be more willing to pay the premium because you have to pony up to try and compete. It's not worth them paying X amount for whatever it would take, whether it would be, making a trade or trying to get more fab or doing whatever. It's not worth them to do it because their team, they manage their team so well to put them in a position where they could say, you know what, we're going to hold on to our assets. We're not going to make any type of acquisition and we're just going to ride it out and see what happens because our team is so good. We can still put the points up. And this is not, I guess you can say, like you keep saying, this is in hindsight because now we know the result, but it played out in their favor and it wasn't complete luck. Their team is that good that they were able to actually do that. They were able to put up 112 points with one less man than their opponent and two less quarterbacks. And you're in here talking.
There's no way that this is your tune if they lost the game and lost by differential of Ehlinger or Heineke. There's no way.
It would be my same tune if I'm looking at them and they're the fourth overall seed.
Absolutely no shit.
Why would it not be your tune if the argument was about point four?
Because you can also run the tape back. And I said they are solidified in their playoff spot. I don't think they care necessarily if they're a 1 seed or if they're a 4 or a 5 seed because these 5 spots seem to be locked up.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. I would have the same tune if I'm looking at them and I'm saying, well, you know what? Okay, they don't have 1,059 points. Hold on. They don't have 1,059 points.
Or just like KB on your back. It's fine.
What?
I mean, you're just carrying this man on your back right now. You're carrying the whole episode.
Well, it's my show. I can do whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah, you're here arguing for him.
Yeah,
George hasn't said anything.
Okay, and I'm bodying you like I do every single time we get into this. But if we're looking at it and we say, okay, they don't have 1,059 points.
Very confident listeners.
They don't have 1,059 points. They have 1,050. I'd say, wow, they're still 150 points above McMorrow, who is in 6th place. They are still 150 points from being out of the playoff picture. I'd say that a team that could, so even if they didn't win this, and even if they lost by a bigger point differential, and they didn't put up the points that they need, and they only put up 80, 90 points or something, which would still be insane to do with 0 quarterbacks, I must stress, they would still be about 150 points away from being kicked out of the playoffs. I'd say that that's pretty good management to build yourself quite a cushion that you could afford to do that. So I don't see that as mismanagement.
You could afford to mismanage a quarterback situation in week 8. I'm very confident in arguments I made here. The listeners are going to see it my way.
You shouldn't be confident in anything. You're a fucking idiot. You're a fucking idiot. You're coming and talking to us, and it's like it's like we've said before, talking about your rebuild. If we want to also get into that, right? Because you keep
we don't need to get into that.
You keep leaning on this thing where nobody's allowed to criticize your management because you're in a rebuild. You're in a rebuild. But like I said, okay, you're actually so far down in points for that. It's like, how much ground do you expect these draft picks to make up?
I mean, everyone really is taking a stance.
On all these picks,
they assume I'm using every.
You're just going to be. You're even if you hit on all these picks, you're just going to be able to compete with the middle of the pack.
Yeah, everyone assumes that I'm taking these picks and taking a player every single time. Picks are the one thing in dynasty fantasy football that don't lose value. They only gain value.
So if you package up the picks or you package up the player, that just cuts in. You almost need to use all these picks just to fill out a roster.
There's no way I'm taking 5 players in the first.
Yeah, but you almost have to just to fill out a roster. That's what I'm saying. Because if you want to package them together, that just cuts off on your ability to take these guys that'll fill out these roster spots. It's like your roster is so bare. It's like a barren wasteland.
Yeah, I mean,
you're talking about George mismanaging his quarterbacks.
If we want to do an episode about Pete's rebuild, I'd be happy.
Malik Willis put up 1.7 more points than George's 0 quarterbacks this week. No,
And
you were
what-
out here talking
what?
about, you want to talk about mismanaging quarterbacks. You can't even evaluate a quarterback. You had Malik Willis going in like the top 5 of the NFL draft. He almost didn't go.
Dude, the dude has played 2 games.
When he got selected,
two
he was in the
games.
green room. When he got selected, he was still in the green room. The janitors were fucking sweeping up. They were getting all the
George,
confetti from the
hey,
whole first
Karen,
round.
Let me ask you. You ever believe in someone? You ever watch the tape in college and believe in
Let's go
someone?
back into
Believe
Tua.
in
Let's go
something?
back into Tua. Look at this. Look at this.
You ever publicly give a realistically hot take of someone you watched in college that you love the tape, you want to take a chance on them, just because in Dynasty Fantasy Football, there's no better feeling than being right when someone else is wrong. So maybe you go on a limb, you love this guy's tape, you love his skill set, and you want to publicly give a take on him.
Or you love what
Just
you read in the
take the
blog or
chance
something, right?
that you
probably
might
read
be
it in the
right
blog.
when everyone else is wrong. I don't care about being wrong, but you two just want to talk about being everyone
Of
else.
course you don't care about being
care
wrong.
about
because
being
fucking
wrong.
always
You're
wrong.
both like.
Why would you
Tua,
care about
Tua,
being
Tua,
wrong?
I'm going to
You've
take
never
the
been
established
right.
quarterback.
He
I'm going to
doesn't
take
care
the
about
established
being
quarterback.
wrong. He said, I guess
No,
that's
I'm
right
not
with the way he
afraid.
just
I'm not
fires
afraid
from
to
the. I mean,
be
he's
wrong.
wrong so
I'm absolutely
much,
not
and he
afraid to
seems
be
so
wrong.
unaffected by it. I
Because
guess
it's
he really
so
doesn't care
nice
about
when you're
being
right.
wrong.
You're
so
never
good when
right.
you're
What I'm saying is you're never right. What
I'm right,
saying is you
George.
had 500 takes
Please.
and 499 of them
Yeah,
have
I
been
know.
wrong.
This
You
is
said
shouting my
college-
failures, whispering my accomplishments.
What is it that they say about a
fucking
broken
college
clock?
quarterback from Liberty was better than a starting NFL
George,
quarterback?
he's played 2 games in the NFL. Tua didn't start till like week 9 in the NFL.
Because he was coming off of a hip injury. I
taking
understand.
a
I
shot.
understand.
I'm taking a
No,
shot
no, no,
on a guy
I
that I love
understand
the
that you
tape
just
and I
started
love his
following
skill
college
set.
football this
Like,
past
just
year.
believe in
Tua,
someone.
talk
Believe
about
in
love.
someone. Watch the
Tua
tape.
was coming off a
Believe in
hip
someone.
injury that almost ended his
Make a public
career.
take on
He didn't start
Just for
because
the
he was
chance that
rehabbing.
you might be
No,
right when everyone else is wrong.
No, I know. I understand that you just started
That's a
watching
great
college
feeling.
football. Tua was coming off a hip injury. That's why he didn't start those games. Do you not know
what?
that? Do you not know that?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't
That
matter.
doesn't matter. You just
I'm
said
taking a chance
no,
on
no,
a guy.
no.
Taking a chance on a guy.
You just tried to use
It
that as
feels
an
good.
example from Malik coming out and throwing the ball 10 times. No. Pete, Tua couldn't play those games because he was recovering from a broken hip. You know that, right?
Yeah, he doesn't care because he just talks.
Because he doesn't know anything. He doesn't know
That's what I'm
anything.
trying to
He
tell
just,
you.
no,
He
he
talks.
just tried to say that Malik Willis, he just tried to compare Malik Willis coming in, starting the game, not being trusted to throw the ball, right? I think they threw it like once in the second half. He scored 1.7 fantasy points. His rushing ability, that is like the one redeeming
And
quality
you're
he
shutting the
currently
book on him? You're
possesses.
shutting the book on him after one start?
No, I'm not. You didn't even let me finish. I said you tried to compare him to Tua not starting his first however many games. When Tua, he didn't start that because he was developing or because he was bad. He couldn't start because he literally could not play. He was recovering from a broken hip.
Exactly.
You did not know that. You clearly did not know that because
Malik
you
is
just tried to
coming
use
out
that as
of
an
a
example against him.
second quarterback role. It's the same. My comparison was that Tua didn't start in the NFL right away for success. I mean, there's Malik.
He didn't.
He didn't start right away because he couldn't play.
Right, exactly. Malik hasn't played. It's the same thing. They haven't
He
played
just
NFL football
played.
yet.
He just played. He could play.
One
He's
start,
at practice
one
every
start.
day. He has every opportunity to go in and take Ryan Tannehill's job, and he has not.
Mahomes
Tua
didn't play
came
his
in.
whole first
The
year.
job was
Mahomes didn't
his.
play his
The
whole
only
first
reason
year.
he didn't play. No. The only reason that he
Smith
didn't play
played.
was because he could not play. He had a broken hip.
Justin
This
Herbert
is not
sat
comparable at all.
behind Tyrod
Acting-
Taylor until Tyrod Taylor got hurt.
What?
Anyway, this Malik argument and my success in my dynasty team is not even close to
Wait. So you tried to switch it over to Herbert
But-
because you realized that your example of Tua.
You guys
Wait,
you're coming
no,
at me
no,
about Malik who's
This
had
is
one
what you
start.
do.
One
Look,
start.
Pete,
You're coming at me about Malik about one start just because I believe in a guy. Like,
Pete, first of all,
take a risk one time. Take a risk one time.
I took a risk. I traded
Take
for Tua
risk.
when everybody called me a goddamn
Give a
moron.
public,
and he's
give a
out here
public
putting up-
opinion
he's
about
out
a
here being
college
one of the best
player over a
quarterbacks in the league.
proven
I
athlete.
took a risk.
One time. Believe in something.
I took a risk.
you
I took a risk.
Pete,
How many times did I get laughed at for Tua
You're still
on
getting
this show?
because your
on
team's
this
worse than
show.
mine.
What's that?
You're still
his
getting
team's
laughed.
not worse than yours.
I'm still
I get
getting
it.
laughed
His
at.
team has a- Yeah, you think his team's worse than yours?
Pull the league. See
Oh
pull
my
the league.
God,
See
you
which
have no
situation you'd rather
brain
have
cells.
right now.
Pete, this is what I'm trying to tell you is that
I mean, we could just look at all my
you
injuries.
have a take, right?
Oh, I got injured.
This
I'm
happened. This has
rebuilding.
happened multiple times in this
No,
conversation.
hold on.
No, wait, hold on. Keener,
Wait, George,
Keener, let me-
I gotta
hold on,
stop.
hold on.
I gotta stop you.
He has
I gotta
a-
stop.
he had
I
a
gotta stop
take.
you. George, I gotta put you on mute. He just tried to compare me having injuries as an excuse to him rebuilding as an excuse. I have the players.
No, you don't.
I have. I didn't have. You want to talk about not having a third quarterback? Thank God I have Davis Mills because I've had the most injured quarterback situation in the league.
You
Tua
don't have
couldn't
players.
speak 3 weeks ago. Tua wasn't able to feed himself 3 weeks ago.
I think
Okay,
your team
Mac-
is widely
Mac Jones
considered
couldn't
the
walk.
worst situation or the second worst situation in the league.
Behind you?
No, behind Amaral.
No, behind you.
Yeah, behind me.
Are you
Why-
dumb?
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay, yeah,
right,
okay. So
Monty?
there, you just said it. You just said I have the second worst situation behind you. You just
No,
said it. We
I'm in
have the
front of
tape
you,
right
then
there.
you,
We
then
can
Amaral.
roll.
Amaral, slow strokers, Pete.
No, not at all. It's not even close. If I had a fully healthy team, we wouldn't even be
Your
discussing it.
players still aren't that good.
I'm not saying that I'd be a playoff team, but I'd be
But-
way higher in these rankings if I had a fully healthy team for this year. We can go back, we can even go back on the tape from weeks 2, 3, 4, where you yourself have said nobody's been bitten by the injury bug quite like I have. I think you called it an injury monsoon, you called it all these things. So all of a sudden, if you want to
Yeah,
say,
and I wrote a
oh,
blog
you're just
about
making
not
excuses,
believing in
you're
your
just making
team from the
excuses.
jump
We have
before
you
the
saying the
season.
same things about my team. So all of a sudden to come out here and flip the script just to make it fit your
I'm
narrative.
not
because
flipping
you're
the script. I
getting
called your
bodied in
team
this
trash in
argument.
the blog preseason.
What?
I'm not flipping the script. I called your team trash in my blog in the preseason.
I don't think I had the same team when you wrote that blog.
You did.
I think I had a complete different like roster when you
No.
had that.
No, you didn't.
All right, sure. All right, then fine.
George,
Wait, all
what
right,
was
let me
your
just point
quarterback
out-
strategy in week 8?
Let me just point out two things that Pete
George,
done.
what was
Like
your
I said, this
quarterback
is why
strategy in week 8?
this is why people can't take you seriously. There's been 2 times that it's happened. The first time you had a take that Kiernan was living in hindsight. That was your take. You said that, right? We literally pointed out how that wasn't true by bringing up something that he had said 7
I
days
think it's still
ago.
true.
You instantly, or I don't know how that's possible that you could say that that's still true, even though you've been presented with facts that show that that's not true. The same thing just happened with the Malik Willis Tua situation. You said both of them didn't start. Kiernan goes on to point out why Tua wasn't starting. You immediately realize you're wrong, and then you pivot the conversation to Patrick Mahomes not starting or something else. I'm
What
just
was I
saying
wrong about?
this is why people can't take you. This is why you can't be taken seriously when you talk about these things. And that has been my argument this entire time, which is why I would never stoop to the level of trying to explain to somebody who doesn't even know anything about managing what is going on. Because every single time you're proven wrong, you can't just be like, oh, you're right. I was wrong on that one. You have to pivot the argument
Please, George.
to something completely different. Remember when we were talking
Explain
about
your quarterback
um,
strategy in week 8 to
the
Kieran.
Steelers? The Malik Willis thing, that was the one where you kept pivoting and you were like, the Steelers are going to take them. The Steelers are going to take them. And then, you know what I mean? It's
No,
just
no.
like,
Pete thinks Malik Willis is so good that he could only have succeeded if he were drafted about 2 rounds earlier to the Steelers. That's how much Pete believes in Malik
Not
Willis.
what I think. Words in my mouth.
and I think that the
No,
thing is that you kept
said that.
saying,
Did
like,
you not say
I
that
have
the
a
other
take-
week? You said that you really liked it. You really liked him in that situation.
I did really like him in the Steelers situation, and I'm
Yeah, so he
I
had to
really
go
like him
there
in
just to
Titans
have
situation,
success.
too.
That's all.
no,
And you-
I-
No,
just
because
like
you
you're
had him
saying-
so good. You gave him a first round grade, not just 120 whatever that the Steelers picked. You actually had him going top 5 or 6 or whatever. You
'Cause he's
thought he
backed
was
up.
such a
At least I
supreme
think he is.
talent. You laughed me out of here when I argued that Tua was a way better prospect. And the draft spoke for itself. Better prospects don't go, and I'm not saying don't get that confused with better players. Better prospects don't go 2.5 rounds later than the guy that you're saying isn't a better prospect. Tua was a infinitely better prospect, and where they went in the draft speaks for that.
Yeah, maybe in your opinion. I'm still on the league.
No, not in my opinion. That's a fact. That's a fact.
But this is what I'm saying.
Tom Brady's the
Kieran,
greatest player of all time. He was not a good prospect.
But he's not gonna, but it doesn't matter what you say. He's decided that's wrong. And so he can't be talked out of it.
No,
Like,
this is like the
You
classic.
live
This
in
is
your
like, I
own
mean,
reality.
I mean, this
What was
this,
it?
This
Oh, it was
argument
when he tried to
George
argue that-
mismanaging his quarterback situation in week 8 and is devolved
it was
into,
like
let's
when
review
Pete
all
tried
of
to
Pete's
it
takes
was like
and
when
tell
Pete
him
tried to argue
I'm not
that
afraid of being
the
wrong.
Dolphins offense looked just as good with Teddy Bridgewater and Skylar Thompson and a quarterback. Tua goes out, they go 0-3 without him. They come back. They have not lost with Tua. The offense looks unbelievable with him
George
at
didn't
the
start a
helm.
quarterback in week 8. He didn't have a quarterback starting.
So anyways, it's
Mismanaged
like when Pete said that, right? And then all of a sudden, right, he gets bodied. You call him out in the
That
chat.
was my take.
You call him out in the chat and he says, oh, well,
Always
George,
been.
don't you know anything about stirring the pot? I was just trying to stir a pot because it's all just a prank with Pete, right? He doesn't have any legitimate tweets or any legitimate takes. He just tries to throw shit at a wall. He hopes that he can get people riled up. And then when you get fired up just because you get so excited about knowing that you're right and just shitting all over him, he he does this smile, right? He goes, and he goes, oh yeah, I got you fired up. I got you going. I poked the bear, so I created content, right? He thinks that our rants are content that he creates because everything he tries to do. I found the blog, right, and then it reminded me the blog that Pete's referring to, where he called my team trash, which he's right, he did do that. That was when he just took a graph that was all stuff that I had written down on paper, sent to our group chat, and shown everybody, everybody that I had traded for, everybody I received, he just took that, typed it onto the blog, and then posted it, calls it his content, right?
No,
He comes
not
in here
true.
with
I
his
wrote a
dog shit
whole
takes. He gets
paragraph
me.
about my
He
specific
he
opinion
winds
that
up.
had
He
nothing to
winds
do
up
with
the
the
tour. He
rankings.
gets me going, and then he
Words in
tries
my
to take the
mouth.
credit for that
Words
as
in my mouth
content.
again. Words in my mouth.
A bunch of us all get together.
Words
with
in my mouth,
Quincy. He tries to
Jones.
claim that as his thing.
Nothing new.
He says that Quincy Fest was all his. You couldn't do it without Pete. All
Hated
that
Quincy
stuff,
Fest.
and then he's doing it here too, right? He's talking about. Oh, Kieran, you can have this debate with George and all that because he just wants me to do the heavy lifting. So that's all. So
You've been doing the heavy lifting for George
I guess
the
that's I
entire
guess that's why
episode,
my name.
brother.
I guess that's why my
I'm
name
the one
comes first
speaking
on the
up. George
show.
hasn't said anything.
I guess at the end of the day, it's why the show doesn't run without me. It's because it's the Lex Lumpkin show with Slippery Pete. Maybe we'll just rename it that because I do. I need that dummy sidekick, right? Just that complete buffoon, like he's like a henchman or something that I can just kind of toss these have thrown me softballs and kind of get me up because that's what the people come to see. So, people love seeing Slippery Pete get shit on. And I don't think this episode will disappoint. George, you got any closing comments on it before we get to the power rankings? Let you go.
No, I think that's right. And if Pete is so adamant that people would watch this and have any inkling that he was right, I would challenge him to a loser goes home. Put it up to a poll whose argument was right. And if you lose, then you're out of here.
Pete?
Decline.
Thank you.
Interesting.
I'll talk to you guys.
All right. Thank you, Sundog. Thank you, Brains, Brawn, True Professionalism, Easy Peasy Moving and Service. That was a good segment. George, we'll let you go. We'll move on to the power rankings.
So,
All right. Let's get into the power rankings. Let's see.
do we want to get into the power rankings? I mean, you just said that I was checked out and didn't want to put anything.
So okay. So now you just want to end the show?
No, I want to do the power.
Run too long for you. You want to end the show?
I want to do the power rankings.
You want to call it off? You want to go to bed or
I
something?
want to do the power rankings, but
All
you
right.
said that I didn't want anything to do with the show. That was what you said.
And then you just asked me, "Are you sure you want to do the power rankings?"
Well, I just
I'm
want to make sure you still
I
want to
just
have
said
me
let's
on.
get to the power rankings.
I just
You're
want
the
to
one
make
that's
sure
now
that you
trying
still
to.
want to have me on.
I don't know if you're trying to coax me into like storming off or something, so you don't have to do it.
No, I just want to
I'm
make
here
sure
to
you
do
want
it.
me here.
If you
I
want
just
to
want to
leave,
make sure you want
if you
me
want to leave, because I've done it before.
I don't
I've done
want
the
to.
episode by myself before, and I'm not afraid to do it again. So
Do
if
you
you
want
want to go and you
You
want
want
to,
You want me
you
here
want to
with
talk
you to do the
about.
power rankings right now because I
All
want
right,
to.
and we'll get right into it because I was ready until you
Excellent.
cut me off. So I was starting. And fitting as always, number 12 is Slippery Pete. You are in the basement. You are, doing an unbelievable job of scoring as little points as possible. Like I said, I mean, hey, maybe these draft picks, maybe they would be able to make up the 350 point difference. I can't tell if that's 572 or 512 that I wrote for your points. We're looking at like a 300 to 400 point difference. You are trying to get, acquire these draft picks, get the best picks that you can. So hopefully those picks can make up for the 400 or 500 point difference it would take for you to suddenly be competing at this time next year. We'll do it as always, the kind of teams that kind of fade into irrelevancy. So 12, 11, put that shit on, 10 slow stroke Kings. I just feel like these are the teams. It's kind of the point of no return right now. I'm, ahead of you guys by points, but even that we're looking at 250-ish. I do have my guys coming back. I just, we've been saying it for the past couple of weeks. The quarterbacks being out, Swift being out, all that stuff. It just made it so hard. It put me in such a hole. I don't think I'm going to be able to climb out of it. So, 12, 11, 10, it's kind of been I think that's kind of been the song for the last 2 or 3 power rankings. I think it'll stay that way for the rest of the year while these next teams kind of battle it out. I do think we're going to start to see more teams maybe join us. We can get right into that, actually. I think this will be the next team to join us, whether they realize it or not. It's number 9, the most athletic Suns. So with the Suns, I'll kind of preface it by just kind of explaining their situation, right? So right now they are number 1 in the division in max points for. They are number 3 in the division in points for. So there's a little bit of mismanagement there. I didn't look back at the numbers. I think a lot of it probably has to do with having Jamal Williams on the bench so early in the season. And I got to take on the Lions backfield in a second as well, actually. But where was I? So yeah, they lead in max points for. They pretty much need to go 6-0 if they want to try and win this division. I don't know which is actually an easier path for them to get into the playoffs because, they scored 160 points last week. That's what they needed to actually get back, not out of the basement, get into the basement.
In the conversation.
Yeah, that got them into the basement. So now they're still 70 points behind McMorrow. They're behind Wallace. They're behind Mikey. They got a big climb coming ahead if they want to try and do this. They're also 3 games back in their division, but I think there's 6 games left. I believe I counted. I could be wrong on that. So pretty much they have to go 6-0. If they want any shot at winning the division, they have to go 6-0. But then that also means that Bowen has to go worse than 3-3. I mean, points for are the tiebreaker. And funny enough, they actually are. They're like a point behind Bowen. So if they can go 6-0, which I think is, highly unlikely, and Bowen happens to go 3-3, there is an avenue for them to actually, pass them in points for as well. So, that would be something to keep an eye on. But I mean, I think the Gabagool division, they're only going to send one team to the playoffs. It kind of just seems so far gone here. I don't see, because even if the Zits, if they do get knocked out by Mikey's team, I don't think they're going to have enough points unless they go on a, good second half run to sneak into that 6th spot. So, the most athletic Suns, they're just in a really tough spot now where I think, they've been holding the bag. Now is the time. If they're going to get off the ride, you got to jump out now or it's going to come crashing down. If they go into this trade deadline still with their aging stars, Brady, I don't think they're going to trade Kamara, but also Waller on their roster, guys like that, they got to start trying to find ways to tear it down. And I just feel like they're stuck in that no man's land, but they're keeping themselves there. They don't want to make the trades. They don't want to pay up and do the things that it'll take to make their team, to elevate their team and get them, really into that playoff conversation. But they also don't want to make the moves necessary to maybe properly tear it down. So I'm a little worried about where they're at heading into the trade deadline. But Pete, where do you stand on the most athletic Suns?
Yeah, I'm ready to show. I mean, I think the last couple of weeks power rankings, I was like saying that they weren't a playoff team because I was like kind of just wanting it to be happening because I had their pick. But I'm like confident you can like factually say you can shut the door on the playoffs for the Suns right now. 3 games back, you said it. They're 9th in points for, in a hole that I don't think they can get out of. Even in that like perfect scenario of them going 6-0 and Bowen going 3-3. You still got to wonder what Mikey's doing in that mix too. Because like, if we're talking, their path, then you're kind of talking Mikey's path too. I'm ready to close the playoff door on both of them, but I think they have a great core. Dak, CD, ETN, CH, I guess. I don't like them, but and then Patterson, Brady, Waller, Connor, Cooks, Goff. Those are obvious sells. I'm really interested to see about Kamara because we know Jalil loves Kamara. He's 27, aging running back. Kind of feels like now is like he's having an elite season, still having an elite season. Like he's going to have a couple more good seasons. I could see him easily trading Patterson, Brady, Waller, Connor, Cooks. Those are the obvious sells. I hope he does. But Kamara is the one I'm really interested in because those other 4, Dak, CD, ETN, CH, like those seem like their core. But Kamara is going to be I think Kamara could be a huge swing piece in this league at the deadline.
Yeah, and just based on my conversations with him as recent as today, I really don't see Kamara getting moved. I think it would take a Godfather offer. And even then, I don't know if that'll be enough. And that's kind of been, that internal struggle I've had, in recent things, like right when I wanted to trade Mike Evans, right. And Mike Evans, one of my favorite players in the league. It kind of, the part that kind of hurts about Dynasty is that you do get these guys you're attached to, and all of a sudden you find yourself in a spot where you know that selling's the best, but it hurts so much. I mean, even a guy like Swift, right. I shopped him around a couple of weeks ago just to see, right. I mean, I wasn't looking to trade Swift, but I had that realization that, he could fetch me just so much, in terms of assets that it's to do it. But then all of a sudden, I get a deal that looks really good. And I'm like, oh shit, he's a 23-year-old. And, this is different than Kamara because Swift's at least, 23, but this is a guy that's so young and you can sit on that. But even a guy like Kamara, like, he's still putting up these elite numbers that you're like, oh man, like, is this going to be one of those that just comes back to bite me in the ass? But
right.
I just feel like where they're at, they got to look at it and say, we could get so much from a contending team. There's a couple contending teams that have 23 first. We've talked about it on recent powering episodes where, somebody's got to be the first one to make the move on 24 and really start going in on 24 and even 25. And, I mean, if I'm a team that kind of had these players where you can kind of do that and you're kind of positioned to maybe blow it up. And, like we were talking about McMorrow weeks ago, I think McMorrow's out of that conversation now, but a team like them now, why not start looking at these later draft class saying, you know what, let's try and dominate these things because like you said, they have that core where, Dak's a 29-year-old quarterback. CD is 20, I want to say 23 now. Clyde's young. Again, I'm not high on Clyde. He's incredibly touching our line, but now we're seeing this ETN breakout. So it's like you have that core now, and that's a core that can last you a while. Go out and get these young assets to build around them. It's up to them. I still think, they're, if I could rename their team, I just call them, Bag Holder United. I do fear that they're going to, have Brady pass this deadline and then he's going to retire again. I've said it before. If I were in their spot and Brady unretired, I would have traded him for whatever I could have gotten immediately. I would not be risking that again, having him retire on me again. I couldn't do it. But that's the bed that they made. Now they got to lie in it. Right. So, I'd say for the most part, you can kind of count them out. I'd give them like a 1% chance, right? It's going to be
Yeah.
everything would have to just fall through, right? Because not only would Bowen have to go 3-3, Mikey Bowen would also have to shit the bed. He's only 2 games back, so it's going to take an unbelievable, like pretty much an unprecedented second half run. I don't see it happening. So I think maybe next power rank is especially that'll be after the deadline. We'll be looking at it, and we might be adding them to that tier where we just blow through them. So moving on, team we were just talking about, 8 seed. They are 2 games back, right, Pete? 2 games back in the division.
2 games
Let's
back.
go Tigers. It was a team that we were seeing, they were showing some life, and then they came back out. We were looking at them. We were kind of circling that matchup as an opportunity for them to close the gap on Bowen. Sure enough, they came out. If you watch this episode, you know what happened. And I just feel like they're kind of back in that ground where it's like, I don't know about this team, right? And Mikey's made those questionable moves that we've had some weird feelings about. He's gone out. He's tried to kind of fill the gaps with some running backs. He went out. He got Murray. He got Benjamin. But I just don't think that those are the answers. Elijah Mitchell is obviously dead upon arrival when he comes back, with McCaffrey being in that backfield. So, this is a team that, they still have a chance. There is an outside chance. They're really not far off. They're about 40 points away from McMorrow in that playoff spot. So, a couple of weeks shake out their way, they could be in that 6 seed, but all of a sudden that mountain's starting to look a little bit steeper for them. We always love talking about Mikey on the show. How are you feeling about Go Tigers, where they're at right now?
Yeah, I gotta say, George mentioned it earlier that I do have a problem admitting when I'm wrong about my takes, which maybe is true, but I do gotta admit to being wrong about Mikey's team. I gave this take in small circles that Mikey had an opportunity to beat, or no, 2 Pins had the opportunity to lose. I forget who he was playing, but he had Diggs, Devonta Smith, and Cooper Kupp on a bye, I think. And then he smoked them. He put up the most points in the week, I think. George mentioned it earlier. And then I also thought that Mikey had a chance to beat 2 Pins this week. Obviously, we know how that ended. They're 140 plus points for out of Big Brain and Vibers, talking about a wild card race. 140 points for out of Big Brain and Vibers. I don't think they're in the wild card race. And they're 2 games back behind McMorrow. So, like, even though Mikey's like right in the points for conversation with McMorrow, he's 2 games back. I don't see him making up 2 games. I mentioned it before when we talked about Jalot's team. I think Mikey's team is closer to the playoffs, probably a higher percentage than 1% chance than Jalot, but I still think it's under, I don't know, let's say 15%. I was wrong about Mikey's team. I don't think he's gonna make playoff run. I'm ready to shut the door on him.
Yeah, I mean, he had the opportunity, and he just kind of blew it. So, I guess it played out that you were wrong.
Yeah.
I don't think your thinking was wrong. Like we said, we identified the situation. You got to take advantage of those spots. A guy with no quarterbacks, you failed to do it. That's kind of one of those season-definting losses where all of a sudden
you gotta shut out Justin Fields though. I mean, the guy's put up the numbers the last like 4 weeks. So I mean,
he's starting to have a season, and I don't know. I mean, it feels like a stretch of a comparison just because of the season that Jalen Hurts is having right now. But Fields is starting to kind of put together a similar season to Hurts last year, where he was a very good fantasy quarterback, but his job was in danger like the whole season.
People weren't.
And there always the talks about Hurts getting benched. He didn't have that job secured going into this year, and he put it together. But he was still a top 5 fantasy quarterback last year. And Hurts, Fields, he's starting to kind of move up with those recent performances, and we're seeing things work on the ground. They did just go out and get Claypool. I think it was Big Cat that said, it was this was not the, administration that had drafted Fields. So there could have been an aspect of, let's really see if he is our guy. And then it seems like maybe they're going out, starting to get those weapons for him and, allowing him to flourish. Now they feel comfortable, spending for him. So I think that this end of the season will be very telling about how Justin Fields is. I think that'll be very big. If he can, take that next step and really establish himself going into next year, that'll be huge. Because I don't think Mikey's team's in a bad spot dynasty wise. I just think that they kind of got put behind the 8 ball with the early injury to Mitchell, and I think we'll always scratch our heads over the Russell Wilson trade. But at the end of the day, right, if Fields can break out, then Lawrence, he's not necessarily looking great, right? We were laughing at Mikey in the first 4 weeks of the season. Lawrence has looked a little questionable recently, so. If Fields can break out, all of a sudden Mikey can say, well, you know what? I went for it and, it didn't work out, but fuck it. I still got my 2 quarterbacks. So, I mean, again, I do feel like the door's closing a little bit on Mikey after last week, but he does still have a bit of an outside chance. 40 points is not impossible to overcome, in a couple of weeks. I mean, we've seen how teams can just pop off for 150, 160, and, all of a sudden.
He's back 140 in points for.
What's that?
He's back 140 in points for, not 40.
Are you sure?
Yeah, he's behind Big Brain and Vibers by 140 points. That's why I don't think you can make that up.
Yeah, but he's 43 behind McMorrow, which is the 6th seed.
Yeah, but he's 2 games behind him. I don't think he can make up 2
Yeah,
games.
but
I see
none
what
of that
you're saying.
matters for the
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
because wins only matter for the division. Because the
Wait,
wild
so if
card,
you have a worse division, if you have a worst record, but more points for, you win the wild card race?
so the wild card's 3 teams.
Right, but if you're the first thing to decide the wild card is the record, then the
No,
tiebreaker
no, no.
is points for.
The top 3 seeds are just division winners,
Right.
and then the wild card, the 3 wild card seeds are just the
Oh,
of the non-division winners, the highest scoring teams.
I didn't know that. I thought
Yeah,
the
because you know,
record-
I mean, in fantasy, right, points kind of reign supreme, but then you got to make wins count for something. So, I always put it as you got to your first priority should be win the division, get that top seed. But then if you don't win your division, I don't want to have just because you had bad scheduling, like if you put up 1,000,000 points, I don't want you not in the playoffs.
right. Okay.
So it's like I figure
Yeah, I was operating under that wrong. It's not like I thought let's say I don't know, week 14, so like an 8-6 McMorrow would make the playoffs over a 7-7 Mikey who has more points for.
no. I mean, like even now, McMorrow has more wins. McMorrow's ahead of the Vibers in their division.
Yeah, he's 6-2,
Yeah, but
that doesn't matter.
yeah, but then like my argument for the wild card would be, I don't think anybody would have any argument against the Vibers being the better team. So it's like, if you don't win your division, I don't want you to get completely screwed out. So if you score a ton of points, then I think you should be in. And, I think it also makes for, some interesting upsets, right? Because we're seeing how right now Bowen's the 3 seed, but he's 230 points behind the Vibers, who are the 4 seed. So I think it makes for some interesting seeding as well. I mean, I know that you haven't had to deal with the playoffs too much, so I can't blame you for not being familiar with the format.
It's actually appalling that I didn't know that. I'm kind of disappointed in myself. I mean, for someone who preaches the league, not being able to know the playoff contention rules, that's
to cut you a little bit of slack. It's also appalling how often it's asked. Like, I mean, Mikey's asked me a million times, Mara's asked me a million times. So
I pride myself on being the guy.
So maybe I got to look at the common denominator, and then I'll just as commissioner, I'll take the blame. Apparently, after 2 years, 2.5 years, it hasn't been explained thoroughly enough. But 2 playoff cycles. But somebody we'll get the hang of it eventually. It's all right. It's all right. All right, moving on. Number 7. I don't know if this is any movement from last week. We got Wallace. I love my mom. He's surprisingly stayed afloat. I kind of thought that when Breece Hall went down, it would be kind of similar to what I expect to happen to the Jets, which is that they're just going to flounder without their engine on offense. But of course, this is fantasy football. This is not real football, so you can make do with those injuries. But he's bounced back. I mean, he put up 0-2 in the last 2 since the last power rankings, but averaging about 116, 117 points in those matchups. So that's pretty good. He's keeping himself afloat. Still 30 points off of McMorrow. We'll get to McMorrow in a second. I think that, with the way that the season's starting to trend, I think that McMorrow might be hard to catch. We can cover that a little bit more after, or we could just loop him in. How about we just loop it in?
Yeah.
Actually, no, we can't because I don't have McMorrow power rank 6. So let's not do that. But, I don't really know what there is to say about Wallace. We had him on the show. I feel like we kind of almost, clip in his segment there where he just said, he's in a spot where he might as well give it a shot and try and compete. He's doing that. He's about 30 points out of the playoffs right now. So if he can just come in and maybe put a scare into these new team or into these old teams and show that, he knows what he's doing. Ken Walker's going off. Jalen Waddle's obviously been incredible. TJ Hawkinson, who knows what he's going to do off of that trade. I don't know how much to expect from Hawkinson. I think he's, maybe a little bit overrated as a dynasty piece, but this is a team that's keeping themselves afloat. I don't know if you have anything to add to him. I don't think it's, like I said, I don't think there's too much to say, but how are you feeling about Wallace?
No, there's not too much to say. You hit it. I mean, you got to be excited. You got to be excited. You're the first or second team out of the playoffs on the outside looking in, with a great young core, nothing average, nothing aging too much. You got great draft capital. So, I mean, Wallace done a great job since he's gotten to the league. I think you got to be excited if you're him.
Yeah, I mean, I think we want to talk about good situations. I think
like,
that's a really good situation where he's got these stars, he's got this core, and then he also has 2 first-round picks, including his own. So, as we talked about on his episode, if he makes it into the playoffs, then fuck it, I don't really care what my pick is, right? But if he doesn't make it, he's still guaranteed the top 6 pick. And if you're adding a top 6 pick into a draft that's going to be pretty loaded in that top 6, I don't think he's going to be complaining too much, especially if he's able to keep himself afloat without Breece.
I was looking at my weekly mock drafts again, and I was thinking about the trade I with Wallace, or like the take I had earlier that he was playing himself out of a worse pick. I
Mhm.
think like that is obviously like true on the surface level, like he's obviously competing and making his pick worse on a factual level, but you got to be excited. Got to be excited, and he doesn't need a quarterback. I don't think he really needs a quarterback. He invested in two young guys, so like this is a quarterback heavy draft. You expect two, maybe even three to go in the top six. He's definitely going to get a crack at like wide receiver two, wide receiver three, running back four at those picks. So
Yeah, and
yeah, you got to be
if
happy
he's
for Wallace.
watching, if he's watching and he's gotten this deep in the episode and he's paying attention, I will warn him to be wary of, using that sixth, seventh overall pick on a quarterback when you appear to have two. As we've seen, overspending to get that third quarterback to that
Yep.
extent has not really played in the favor of the teams that have done it yet.
And something I'm
Um,
considering too. Like I've got Deshaun, and I don't know if I'm taking one or two quarterbacks yet.
Yeah, because it's like, I mean, you do have that establishment, so it's like you could obviously trade Deshaun and get something good, but at the same time, it's like maybe you want to have at least one veteran like that because
Yeah, that's what I want.
it's a position too that's fairly, I mean, maybe not as ageless as we think because we've been so spoiled by Brady, and now we're seeing guys like Rodgers hit 40 and Matt Ryan get up there, and they just fall off a cliff. So maybe it's not as ageless as we once thought. There was a point in time where Tom Brady was 35. We were talking about trading him before he retires, that type of thing. So, but I mean, Deshaun's still like 25, 26. He's our age. So it's like, that he's such a monster at so young is horrifying. But, yeah, I mean, I do think that you have, kind of an interesting crossroads to figure out. But, I mean, at the same time,
You do have
you could
McMorrow at
trade
6,
him.
right?
You could trade one of your picks. I think you'd be all right.
You do have McMorrow at 6, I think.
No, I crossed him out.
Ah,
I
okay.
actually, yeah, I made a quick decision because I didn't realize that he had won 4 straight, and all of a sudden, if we're going to talk about how strong a team is, I got to put him above that. So we'll get to him in a second. At 6, I do have the Zits. So I've typically ranked them a little bit higher. I think I've had them at 5 for most of the power rankings this year, just because they are the division winner. You gotta at some point you gotta just kind of respect that, but. I am just now that we're looking towards the playoffs. I do gotta kind of start to factor that in a little bit. And if we're talking about how strong teams are going into the playoffs, I just don't. I think that these 5 teams ahead of the Zits, it's hard to argue right now, right? Because McMorrow's going on an absolute tear. Just won 4 in a row. He's putting up a ton of points, and we've just seen the Zits. They're managing to survive, right? And the Zits just feel like they're kind of lurking, and they're a team you don't want to see in the playoffs. And right now, they got a good break with Mikey not getting that win last week. But that's a team that, they still have to sleep with an eye open, and, they can't get too complacent, because if they do, then all of a sudden, right, it's like a 2-goal lead in hockey, right? You fall asleep, all of a sudden they catch up on you just a little bit, and now you're like, shit, now I really have to play defense. So, the Zits, you got to apply that pressure. I think they're still going to be sharp, and Bowen's always hitting the trade market anyways. I think he's always looking for ways to improve his team. So I don't even know if the Zits team that we see right now is going to be the Zits team that we see come the postseason. They do still have that commanding lead. So, they're going to be in that top 6 right now. But I just think that these 5 other teams ahead of them are a little bit more worthy at the moment. Like we've talked about, there's those 4 teams, but I think McMorrow's out playing them a little bit. You got to respect the 4 in a row. So I got the Zits at 6. What do you think about me bumping them down? You agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. I could not agree more with that entire take, actually. The best part about it is I don't think this is the Zits team we see going to the playoffs. Bone is an avid trade market user or whatever, and he's always asking. He's got half his team on the block. This team's going to change in the next 2 weeks, but that being said, the team he does have, it's 200 points behind those top 4 teams. And then sure, Bone is 6-2, and that 5th team he talked about is McMorrow. McMorrow's got 74 points on him. So you're talking about 4 teams that got 200 more points than him scored, and McMorrow's got 70 more points than him scored. Sure, he has 6-2 record. His record's going to look awesome because he's going to go down the stretch and play the whole Gabagool division again and pick up 3 more easy wins. Definitely a lock for the playoffs. I do feel pretty good about having this pick. I think he could be the first team out in the playoffs. But then again, like playoffs, once you make it, you can make a run. I mean, we saw McMorrow win the inaugural league by a margin of 1.1 or like 1 point total.
Yeah, it wasn't even 2 points.
Yeah, it was a bye and then 2 games where he won by literally like fractions of a point. So once you make playoffs, anyone can make a run, especially if the Owen makes a move before the deadline. But as of now, I don't see this team. I don't know. I guess I like having the pick. I see him as the weakest team making the playoffs right now.
Yeah, I mean, if Mikey were to go on a little bit of a run and overtake him for that division lead, as it stands, Bowen would be 4th in the lottery. So I think that really just speaks to, how important it is to kind of win this division because it can get you that spot. Like I said, I don't see the Gabagool division sending 2 teams to the playoffs right now.
No way.
So it's really coming down to who's going to win that division. He does still have a decent sized lead with 6 games to go. So, as long as he can just kind of tread water and stay afloat, I think you'll get there. And then, like you said, as long as you get in, anything can happen. But yeah, I mean, I just think that right now, this is a team that, like I said, is treading water where these other teams are kind of making those steps and further establishing themselves or in McMorrow's case, reestablishing himself. So we can move on to number 5, as we've already, heavily alluded to. Not even alluded to, we've outright said it, but we got McMorrow. I mean, this team's just on fire right now, right? So
Yep.
he's tied for his division lead. He's got a little bit to go, 120, 130-ish we're looking at. Yeah, 122, I think, behind 2 pins for the point. So, it's still going to be tough to get that tiebreaker over him. But yeah, I mean, four games in a row. I'm pulling it up right now. We put up, let's see, what was the schedule? So we got 144.82 last week, 107.84. Those are the 2 weeks since the last power rankings. In this 4-week win streak, it's bookended by a 150.9 point win or point game. And then, like we just said last week, 144.82. So this team is just on absolute fire, putting up crazy points. Tractor Cito season. We're seeing Derrick Henry just absolutely go off. I mean, week 16, would that be the championship then? That would be the championship, right? Or would that be the
14.
semifinals? That's the second game against Houston. So if McMorrow gets into these playoffs and get past the second round, all of a sudden, he might have Derrick Henry lined up to get another 200 yards
200-yard game. Yep.
Yeah, 2 touchdowns against Houston, and that could be a semifinal. All of a sudden, we're looking at McMorrow. McMorrow's a serious dark horse right now. He should be taken seriously. I mean, we're seeing, Dalvin Cook. He's putting up a decent season. Maybe not as big as we've seen in years past, but we saw with Zeke, and then we saw Tony Pollard going off last week. So, maybe he does run into that kind of 2 running back conundrum coming out of the same backfield or something. But because I've talked about it before, I do feel like Pollard's the guy where people only see his good plays and they kind of overlook the fact that it's like, he's been making these good plays for a few years now. There is a reason why he's not the star. He's more than capable of, he has the talent, and we've seen it. He can go off for these crazy games, but at the same time, I think he works better in these limited touches. And I actually said earlier, I had a take about the Lions backfield. I'll just get it off right now. If I'm the Lions, and I love DeAndre Swift, but I look at that Cowboys offense, I look at what has worked for that run game. I say, fuck it, we can do a better version of that. Because if you look at Jamal Williams now compared to what Zeke is right now, you can make the argument that Jamal Williams is better than Zeke currently. And then I'd also say that I think DeAndre Swift is much more talented than Tony Pollard. I'd look at what's working in that backfield, and all of a sudden I'd say, we could do a 2 running back thing too. We could have Jamal Williams do exactly what Zeke's doing. He's hitting those blocks. He's getting the tough runs between the tackles. And then we use, DeAndre Swift for those 10 to 15 touches a game where he's getting, all of a sudden his efficiency goes to the roof just because we know how to use him, right? So, I think that we're seeing this tandem backfield, start to really blossom in the NFL anyways. Nobody's really going to the workhorse besides, Derrick Henry and, the Titans. But, it's like McMorrow, his running backs are starting to come back. Kirk Cousins, I have been saying all year, I think he's a league winner this year. I think he's a guy that's constantly slept on because he just consistently ends up in that, QB 12 range. And, all of a sudden you have yourself a QB1, in this offense, he's able to put up some good points. So, I like how his team's built right now. I still have some question marks about his receivers. I don't know how active he's going to be at the deadline, but as we saw in year 1, and then we saw in the first half of year 2, his running backs are just so good that they really can carry him. And if he's able to get that boosted quarterback play from Kirk Cousins, even Marcus Mariota and Daniel Jones, then, his team could be right back in this conversation. We're seeing it right now. So how are you feeling about McMorrow in this recent surge?
Yeah, I mean, we're flipping the script. We both are, right? Like if it was you and I, we were talking about selling this team during weeks 4, 5, 6, 7. And now we're flipping the script because he's insanely hot. You got to give it to him. Like I don't know. McMorrow wasn't going to make a move anyway until the deadline, if he even is going to. But he did stick with his team, and he is looking like he could make another playoff run. I do think the wide receivers are trash, though. Like the wide receivers are bad. You got Deontay Johnson, who I think has great skill, great talent still, but rookie quarterback. That the offensive line's terrible. We know about Allen Robinson. High hopes for him in LA, didn't show up. Wan'Dale Robinson, I think last week, like it's the running backs carrying this team, and then Kirk Cousins and Daniel Jones performing above average or above expected. So I don't know. You got to give it to McMorrow. He's in line to make a playoff run. I don't expect him to make any selling moves at the deadline. I think he's reluctant to make moves anyway. And the position he's in, I think he's 5th points for. I don't see him making any moves. I see him trying to ride it out for one last time. I do still think it's going to hurt him though, because people saw the regression with Henry and Cook like early on this year. So even though they're crushing it this year, I think that you can only expect that regression to carry over to next year, I guess, if that's what I'm trying to say. I think he's going to ride out his team, but he'll be risking a lot of value loss next year.
Yeah, because I'd even say, and this is just how I feel about him. I don't know how the rest of the league feels about him, but when you're looking at like the trade value of guys like Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, Zeke, who his trade value kind of started to plummet a couple of years ago, even though I think he's been kind of underrated just the way that people talk about Zeke, but I think their trade value is still down from the start of the season. If I were a buying team, I would have been more interested in paying more for Henry week one than I am now, just because it's like, okay, you can get him for this, but like you said, these are guys that are still older running backs. Derrick Henry's like 29, and he might just be built to just run until the wheels truly fall off. And he's so big that maybe he could just be kind of ageless to that in that aspect. But it's like there is kind of some ageism in dynasty, and people see running backs at that 27, 28, 29, and God forbid 30. All of a sudden, it's impossible to start trading for these guys because how much can you really expect? So maybe McMorrow can put it together and get one more ring out of it and make it all worth it. And it doesn't even matter if he sucks for the next couple of years or something, which I don't think that would be the case anyways. These guys are still going to be, decent contributors, even, when they start to get a little bit, when the aging starts to show. But McMorrow said he was going to decide. I remember a week or two ago, I asked him if he was a buyer or a seller. He said he was going to see how he was looking in 2 weeks. I believe that 2 weeks is up, and I feel like he's probably going to be looking at it as being a buyer. If he were to do anything, we know how he is with the moves. So we'll see what he does. We got the deadline coming up soon, but he's in a great spot. I feel like he's got a good hold on this 6th spot right now, and it's his to lose, right? I mean, he's not. It's only about a 30-point lead over Wallace, but I think he's more than capable of outscoring Wallace for the remainder of the season. So it's on him to continue to do this. If he wants to try and build off of that, then good for him. But he's in a good spot right now, so he can really sneak into this. And I think we can both say that we jumped the gun on him a little bit. Maybe we shouldn't have doubted him, but here he is. The champ is back, and he's looking to reclaim his throne. So
I'm okay with saying I was wrong. Like he's hot, insanely hot.
Yeah, exactly. All right. At 4, I don't think this final 4 will be too controversial. Always worth saying. I think that these are the 4 that are just locked into the playoff spot. It would take, at this point in the season, it would take just an absolute catastrophic collapse for them not to make it. But, at 4, I got Big Brain. So, it's the typical logic I've always had with these things. Not the division winner, and they are, scoring less than the other wild card team they're going up against. They continue to be hot. McCaffrey, I will say is all the way back. I was starting to doubt him a little bit. I felt like maybe, and I didn't foresee a trade coming. I thought that, the way that the Panthers were using him was just not really good for, being that elite running back anymore. But now it looks like the Niners have gotten their shiny new toy and they just want to show him off. And, I think that they're just going to do it, whatever they can, and, hope that he can keep himself healthy. That's always been the issue with him anyways. It's never been a question of the talent. But as long as he can be healthy, I think he's going to be absolutely horrifying in this Niners system. We've seen this Niners system be able to just, everybody kind of writes off systems like this where, they could just go grab a undrafted free agent, he can succeed. But they overlook what that means if you bring in a true talent, a running back that was drafted in the top 5 of his draft. That there's a huge difference in talent between Christian McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell. And if Elijah Mitchell can be a top 10 running back in that system, just imagine what McCaffrey can be. And now we're starting to see it. Not only is he a top 10 running back, I mean, he's out here catching the passes, making, that touchdown catch he had was not a catch that's not a catch that a running back makes. He went up and high pointed the ball, came down with it, got the feet
That's a catch
down
that Darnell Mooney drops in the end zone.
Yeah, it was amazing that. And then he also threw for a touchdown. So it's like, if that's how he's going to be used, the sky's kind of the limit for him in this system. And, we know how Big Brain's built, right? The quarterbacks, they're taking a little step back. They did go out. I still think they might have been better off with Geno. They might have given up on Geno a little too early, making that trade for Garoppolo. I know how they play, though. They're very, the 3 of them are very risk averse. They saw a safer asset in Jimmy. They went out and got him, and Jimmy gets to go and, get those points that they need. Rodgers, I don't know if there's going to be, I still don't know how much of a bounce back we can expect from Rodgers anymore. I know it's always, don't doubt him. It's Aaron Rodgers, all this. I think we're starting to see him age a little bit. And, maybe I'll be wrong about that in a couple of weeks, but it's pretty late into the season. Usually we see that turnaround by now. We're not seeing it yet, but the rest of that team is still built out pretty good. I mean, they lost Michael Thomas. They never really had him to begin with. So how big of a loss is that? And, in his loss, we've seen the emergence of must-start Myers. Amari Cooper's looking good. Deshaun Watson's going to be back eventually. And, hopefully that, you would assume that boosts him up. That's just a strong team. They're built with, powerful starters, a bunch of quarterbacks, and then zero depth on the bench. So as long as they don't get hurt, they're just going to be dominant like they are. And, you got to be feeling good if you're big brain. They are actually outscoring. It's worth noting they are outscoring Simcoe right now. So if they are to catch him in wins, they would have that tiebreaker as it stands. But, they are one back. So I got to move them back to fourth right now.
Yeah, I agree. With Big Brain, our only real ever factual critique of Big Brain is they just didn't have depth at wide receiver. Now I think with Thomas out, you're right, they never really had him, right? They never really had him. It just feels like they're still one injury away to a major player that puts them from that elite tier of the top four to just a really great team, right? And you could make the argument you could say that about everyone, but I think those top three teams, Vibers, Simcoe, and Two Pins, their success is a little more insulated with depth. So that's my only real factual critique for Big Brain. I think it remains. I do think, I know you usually say that we're splitting hairs when we talk about this top four, but Big Brain, behind the Vibers here, they literally played the Vibers last week. They beat them 150 to 120. Big Brain 6-2, Vibers 5-3. Vibers only have 5 or 11 points on Big Brain for points for. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe we're still splitting hairs, but I guess it's worth saying that they did play last week. Big Brain smoked them, and it's fair to say that they could be a top 3 team.
Yeah, and you always get to split hairs when it comes to it.
Yeah,
with these four, right? I mean, you could argue that you could honestly make an argument that Big Brain's number one, right? They're only 4 points behind Two Pins. 13 points behind the Vibers, and like you said, they did beat the Vibers.
I do like them at 4. I like them at 4. They don't have the depth.
I mean, right now it's just all in terms of they don't have that division, so I can't really put them in that top 2 and arguably top 3. But right now we're not doing we're not putting Bowen in the 3rd spot anymore. So you just got to put them there. But moving on, number 3, we do have the occasional Vibers. So they are the league's leading team in points for with 1,068.55. But as we mentioned, they actually are 3rd in their division in terms of wins. They're behind Two Pins, of course. Now they are behind McMorrow after last week's loss. But they continue to just be a strong team, and they're always going to be in this top 4 unless like I said, some type of catastrophe happens to their team or something. But they continue to just put up those big numbers. 119.26 last week. It was a loss. 125.6. Those are the last 2 weeks since their last power rankings. But they're just consistently, I think their season low right now is 111. And then, they've gone as high as 178.16. So it's if their floor is 111, then, they're in a good spot. I don't really know what else there is to say about them. I mean, they're, incredible depth. Their quarterback play is great. Their wide receiver, AJ Brown, getting 3 touchdowns last week was insane. So, incredibly strong team. Like I said, you could make an argument for them to be anywhere in this top 4. They are the league leading team in points for, but right now, 3rd in their division. You got to put them at 3.
Yeah, I want to amend one thing. I'm not going to I didn't really mean to say Big Brain doesn't have the depth to make a playoff run. They absolutely have a team too, but they just don't have the depth that the Vibers have and that Simcoe has and the Two Pins has. I mean you hit the nail on the head with the Vibers. I don't think there's much to add. I was just kind of looking at their roster and thinking about, could they make any win now moves? Do they even need to begin with? Probably not. But if they were going to, they do have a 23 first. Two Pins, obviously going to be a late one, but I mean, it's something to look at. They could make a move.
Yeah, and that's what makes them dangerous. They have the facilities to do that, and they could go and just pick off another top talent off a team that's looking to get a head start and a rebuild at the deadline or something. So it could be interesting. That's what makes them. It's not only depth of players, but it is depth of picks, and they have that treasure chest, and they have the depth on the bench. That if they even wanted to just package some things up and go for some real top tier talent, they might be able to. So. Makes it interesting, and it will be. I think this is going to be quite a trade deadline. Much like this NFL one. So I'm hoping for it. I'd love to see some fireworks. I'd love to get involved as well. To be determined. All right, number 2. Lamar and the shits. Again, I feel like it's all redundant in this top four. We could just keep saying everything we've said these past 4 weeks or these past few weeks, but division winner, putting up those points. It is something to watch, just it is worth noting they're fourth in points for. Now, they don't have that. I think they, the last couple power rankings, they were much closer to the top, if not at the top at one point. So they might be slipping up a little bit, but at this time, I do put them behind one other division winner, but they continue to put these points up 141, 142 in the past 2 weeks. So, I guess they're not even really slipping. I guess maybe these other teams are just putting up crazy numbers ahead of them. So, it continue to be a strong team. They got the great depth. They got, two of the top 3 MVP candidates as their quarterbacks right now. So, it's another good team. We've always said, we feel like they're a lock for the championship. I just feel like there's a team that's stronger than them right now, but in terms of long-term outlook, I got no doubt about it. Simcoe already got a match on the trophy.
He already bought the trophy case. He already bought the trophy case and some curtains for it. But Simcoe, I talked to him earlier last week. I think I gave him a spin zone that maybe he's kind of slumping a little bit at the right time to ramp it back up for the playoffs. You don't want to bust too early. We could make an argument Romero's busting a little too early, but again with Simcoe, I just looked at what kind of moves he could make. Doesn't really have the draft capital, kind of spent it all. Doesn't really have super young players that are going to pan out. Maybe he could move like a Christian Kirk. But again, this team doesn't really need to move anyone. They're great hands up and down. I guess worth saying they lost J.K. Dobbins to the IR. Doesn't really matter because they have Gus Edwards. I don't think they're going to start Gus Edwards anyway because they are that deep. And the last thing I want to say with Simcoe, I did admit that I was wrong about Mikey and McMurdo's team. So I got to shine and say I was right about D-Hop. Early first 6 weeks of the season, I was saying this team, Simcoe's team's elite. They are already a championship level team, and D-Hop hasn't even played a snap yet. Good to see him come back to full form. He's still nuke.
Yep, exactly. Keep saying it about Simcoe. We love the team. We love the vision. The kids just got the juice this year. So, and that's why, I think teams like us, right? You're so focused on the draft. I became more focused on just acquiring. I couldn't get those picks from you. So I became more focused on acquiring younger players because we saw it. We said, there's no point even trying this year. Let's just focus on next year in the future, get out ahead of that. And, I feel bad for these other teams that are kind of sitting around and thinking that they have a chance, but whatever, it's each their own. Number one, I wanted to save the whole first segment for this. I wanted it to all be a build up to this so we could kind of dive into it. So I don't really know what else we can really say about this team, but I'll just give a quick one. So I got them ranked at number one because I was just so impressed with how they were able to overcome having no quarterbacks. It was a total mismanagement on their part. They had nobody starting their quarterback position. But they overcame it, right? They overcame their own mistakes. They're almost winning despite themselves. But once again, as a man much smarter than me said, they built a team that was so powerful that despite not having quarterbacks, they were able to go out, put up 112 points, get the win, and playing neither Patrick Mahomes nor Justin Herbert, they were able to come out of this week in a better spot than they were going in. So they are now catapulted up to the 1 spot. They are 9 points behind in points for, but they do have the better record than Vipers. They are the number 1 overall seed if the playoffs were to start today. Team 2 Pits. You got anything to say about them, Slippery Pete?
I think I said enough.
All right, then I guess we could leave it there. Like I said, I try not to project too much in these power rankings. I try to just go up based off of what's happened since the last power rankings and where they're currently standing. But I gotta say, if you're team 2 Pins, you see yourself as the number 1 overall seed, and you now know that you don't have to deal with bye weeks for the rest of the season. I'd be feeling pretty good about how I'm running this team. So,
one thing I will say, you put this poll in the league chat been going for the last 42 minutes. Title, should tomorrow's poll be loser leaves the league? They don't really know what tomorrow's poll is going to be.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's four
completely
yes
unbiased
to 0 no. I don't know how you can make a judgment on should the loser leave the league when you don't know what the poll is. But I said it's on recording. If I don't think it's a good idea. I think 2 Pins is great for the league. I think Slippery Pete is great for the league. I think it's for content. I think we both have different storylines going with our teams. I don't think it's good for the league, but if This poll shows, yes, it should be loser leaves, and you put the poll in, then I don't really have a leg to stand on, I guess. So if that's what the league
Oh,
wants,
that's
that's what the league wants.
that's fraidy cat talk. That's what it sounds like to me.
No, I still feel confident in my pick. Like I
Yeah,
still
then-
feel that, like, I made the argument that he mismanaged the quarterback situation, and he did. But I don't want George to leave. It's not Frady talk. I don't want George to leave the league if I'm right when I win the poll. I don't want George to leave the league.
I think you should start campaigning, make sure more people vote no.
No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. You guys did this
Did you even
loser
vote?
league whole. No, I don't need to vote. You guys did this loser leagues whole. So I just don't like
We
it.
need everybody to vote. It's a big league decision. We can't have
Yeah,
less
but
than
like
12 votes.
it's just ridiculous. Like we finally got 12 strong in the league, 12 committed. It's not good for the league to get flip repeat or 2 pins out, regardless of
Well, 12 committed, but I see 8 people have seen the poll. Only half of them have voted.
Yeah,
The
I
other
know,
4,
it's-
if you get in those other 4 years, then and you
Yeah,
know, you're
but I
talking
don't-
about the league, you're not going to vote in a league.
I don't need to vote if the league, if these people
George
can't
voted.
see. Yeah, I know, of course he did. If people can't see that losing a league member, whoever it is of the 12 right now, over a debate is a bad idea, then I don't know what I don't need to campaign. I don't know what else to say. Like I don't think anyone should be in a loser leaves league situation with a 12 strong we have right now, but we are where we are. So
Well, maybe you should get out and voice that opinion instead of sitting back and hoping everybody gets that message.
well, I'm voicing it right now. I'm assuming people are going to be listening to the whole episode, although we're running like 2 hours. So
Well, the
who knows?
poll's being run right now, though. It's being run
Yeah, but-
before.
But you should know that a loser league leaves league situation over something like this is not good, regardless of who is right, who is wrong, and who's in the situation. We finally
I
got.
don't know. I think this is pretty good content. I think this is getting the league buzzing a little bit. So
Yeah, but you voted yes. Do you really think that me or George leaving the league is a good thing? Having another orphan team?
like I said, I'm like Michael Scott with the paper company. I got a million names I could use.
Wait, what? Who could replace?
Oh my God, I got a million people.
Yeah, but like
Unlimited.
Tom,
You,
I don't
you
think, I don't
see-
think
you
it's
see how
good.
many? I just keep churning out these new teams.
I don't think it's good for the league.
I'm a new team machine.
I don't know. I don't think it's a good league. I don't think it's a good move. But you guys made the bet.
Hey, well, you got to get out and vote.
I'm not going to vote.
Okay, interesting. But well, you
Not
know,
good.
I
Not
feel
good.
like that's your way of maybe like a little bit of a filibuster or something. Because we need all teams to vote. So if you refuse to vote, you are holding it up. So
But it's not good. It's not a good thing to get either one of us
then
out.
vote no.
Well, I don't even want to acknowledge the poll is like,
So
realistic.
you feel so strongly, but you won't even go and vote.
but I feel strongly that I'm right, but I also feel strongly that George.
No.
leaving the league is
You
not a
feel
good
so
thing.
strongly. You literally have the option, or you have the ability to vote against this happening. You feel so strongly that it shouldn't happen, but you refuse to cast a vote.
Don't you think
If
by
you
me voting
and 4
validates
other
the
people,
poll?
what?
Do you think that like me voting validates the poll? Like I don't want to validate it as like a good idea at all. I don't want to vote as if like I think
Exactly.
that's
So you're just trying to block it. If you get out and you vote against no, you have the opportunity to use your voice. I'm a commissioner of the people. I just want to see what the people think. Get out and vote. If you feel so
All right.
strongly that it's a bad idea, get out and vote.
all right. Maybe I'll vote no. And then what's our cutoff here? Are we looking for majority owners or 6 teams or unanimous? Because if it's unanimous, then we can just end this conversation now. If it's
I mean,
just majority, then
As you should know, all major league decisions do have to come via unanimous vote.
so I mean I'm going to vote no. That would kill the poll right now.
But you don't want to vote. You don't want to validate the poll.
Because if it goes unanimously yes, then I'm not going to be the one guy saying no on the island. Like it's just ridiculous. We have 12 strong. This is a great league. You've built it up to this. Shouldn't be tearing it down over this argument, even though I'm right.
I've always said I'm a commissioner of the people. I put my name out there. I put my body on the line for everybody. So I'll always listen to people.
All right,
And
I'll take that. I'll take
it's
it.
a thankless job what I do. Nobody seems to have any respect for the position.
No,
Nobody
so am
respects
I.
the office. But it's okay. I come out here and I do what I think is best for the league. So if I feel like a decision makes the league better or worse, and people feel strongly about it, then I will listen to it. But I also need them to go out and I need them to vote. I need full participation in these polls.
All right, I hear you. I will vote. Change my mind.
But all right. So I feel like we can call it at that. I'll go down as always, starting at 12, going down to 1. We have Slippery Pete, Put That Shit On, the Slow Stroke Kings, the Most Athletic Sons, Go Tigers, I Love My Mom, Gino and the Zits, Carson Wentz, Big Brain LLC, the Occasional Vibers, Lamar and the Shits, and Team Two Pins. Thank you to Sundog Multimedia and Easy Peasy Moving and Service. We will be back next week, and hopefully we got a guest. Let's see. It's not next week. It's the end of next week, right?
The end of
That
next
the
week,
trade
yeah.
deadline is.
It'd be nice to have like a potential seller on. That'd be good.
Yeah, maybe like a little bit of like a trade deadline preview. Maybe we'll do some like trades that we'd like to see, something like that.
We could also
Um,
like see what trades do go through and then have someone on to, tell them what they're thinking.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious to see how this league manages the deadline, or if it's like, let's get things done ahead of time, or if let's really hold it close to the vest until it's, almost time. I do like that it comes at the end of the week, so it kind of provides some urgency to do it before game time starts.
Right.
So maybe we'll see some. I mean, what's the Thursday night game next week? Let me see if I can find that real quick. Let's see. Thursday night. We're looking at. All right, Falcons, Panthers. So not really too many players involved on that.
Yeah. No.
I don't see too many players from that team getting moved, in our league. But yeah, I mean, hopefully before Sunday of week 10, we start seeing some moves, and then 2 weeks from now we'll have another power ranking episode. I think that'll be, if we have an active deadline, that'll make for an interesting episode. Maybe we'll have another guest on. I kind of like just incorporating guests, whenever we see fit. If somebody wants to come on, hear their power ranking, or we do a segment before the power rankings or something, then that'd be fantastic. Always a work in progress with the show. But once again, Lex Lumpkin, Slippery Pete, we will be back.